Hello, YouTube. Welcome to, I think now for sure saying welcome to Dark Tower Palaver.
You're still doubting whether or not we're live.
Yeah, because there was one that I like pre-did it because like it seems like when we were waiting, there was like a dead space as we were actually waiting. So I started cutting it short, and then I think one of them I watched, and it was like midway into like my first sentence that it actually started. So I don't know when the hell YouTube starts because they're
it's different. It's different every time.
Yeah, exactly. But welcome. We're here for our our final episode for the book club for the Wastelands, number 25.
Woo!
So we are now finishing it up. First time we finished a book in a while now. So let's go ahead and jump into the opening stuff real quick. First of all, we don't want to worry about spoilers. This is a book club, so we're only going to stay where we're at or before. So basically, the end of this book, or any of the previous things.
You want to hit the intro first?
Oh yeah, I guess we're only talking to YouTube people.
Yeah, we're only talking to YouTube people. We haven't started the podcast.
Not podcast people. Yeah, that's true. I'm getting all.
I came in so fast and so late that I threw Tad off. I'm sorry, everyone.
Well, no, we also have a lot to cover, and
that's true.
Yeah, so I was rushing a little bit. Let's go ahead and then hit the intro, and then give the intro because podcast people need to hear it too.
That's right.
The Dark Tower by Stephen King. The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. Go then. There are other worlds than these. Death, but not for you, gunslinger. It's time we had our own palaver, I think, and it's going to take a while.
And yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower came.
We are content, one from many. Let the palaver begin.
Hello and welcome to Dark Tower Palaver. This is our podcast covering Stephen King's magnum opus, the Dark Tower series. My name is Tad.
And I'm Peter.
And we are here for the last book club of the Wastelands. I don't remember when we started this book, but it's been a while now. But we are finishing it up. That means next month we will be starting a brand new book, which is crazy. But yeah, let's dive right in. We have a lot to cover, so we don't want to waste too much time. First, I want to warn you about spoilers, or actually don't, because the spoiler section for this is at the very end. It is very isolated. You will hear a very clear sound. If you're on the podcast, on the YouTube side, you'll both hear the sound and see the screen change very drastically before that tail end. But that's very, very end. Like I would say, probably less than 5% of the episode at the end is going to be spoiler section. So, but the rest is safe if you've not finished the 7 primary books of the Dark Tower series. So long as you're at least caught up to the end of this book, there won't be any spoilers for this until we hit that thing at the very end. Next, if you want to find us, you can find us on Apple Podcasting, stream us on Spotify or Stitcher, as well as Amazon Music and Audible. But basically, anywhere podcasts can be found. It's like I always want to say like the old saying, sold where what is it like? Quality products are sold wherever
quality products are sold.
Yeah, like wherever quality podcasts are found, you can find us.
Yeah.
And then if you want to, on any of those services, if you could subscribe, rate, and review us, we'd appreciate that. If you want to join us for the live stream, you can do that at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver, or if you want to watch them after the fact and see us and see what's going on, all the shenanigans on the screen and whatnot, or Peter's reaction as things like I don't know. Horrible.
Whenever Tad earns a hashtag, Tad is terrible.
Yeah, it's just to see like Peter's soul leave his body for a second. You could do that over at youtube.com/darktowerpalaver. If you are joining us live, we would ask that you like the video. We got to feed the algorithm gods, and that is the way to do that. Also, if you want to subscribe and ring the bell for notifications if there's ever any changes to our schedule for some reason, which tends to happen at least once during the summer, do that, and the notifications will inform you when we're going live. And also follow us on social media, which Peter will cover in just a second, because we usually announce it there if we have any kind of movement of our schedule. And then our show notes are over at darktowerpalaver.com. There's not really anything for a book club. We don't have show notes for these episodes, but you can find basically the links to all things Dark Tower Palaver. That is the spoke at the center hub of the entire wheel that is Dark Tower Palaver. You can find all of our links over there. Then if you want to support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. We just had a hangout yesterday. where we had some fun little discussions on various King things and Dark Tower things. So we do monthly hangouts, and then you have the Discord that you can talk to us all the time, or shoot Peter emojis anytime. That's always fun.
Or Tad Dad jokes.
No, none of that now. Remember, I have the ban button.
That's fine. You're not going to ban any of them. You can ban me, then I don't have to see the emojis.
Oh no, we'll send emojis your way, sir. All right, so yeah, then if you want to contact us, you can do that in a number of ways, or follow us social media wise. Peter can let you know the ways to do that.
The best way to reach us is through email. We have our old email. It's darktowerpalaver@gmail.com, still active. And we do have our new email that we're switching over to here in the next couple months. It's show@darktowerpalaver.com. Speaking of which, do we have any emails waiting for us next month?
Yes.
I know we ran out.
Got at least one.
Okay, good.
So, and the new one, too. It's the first one we got into there.
In the new?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, awesome.
And then our social media is, the Twitter is at Dark Tower Pod. That's at Dark Tower POD. And then our Facebook is facebook.com/Dark Tower Palaver. We have an Instagram. It's Dark Tower Palaver, all one word, no spaces. And then check out our merchandise. It's tpublic.com/user/Dark Tower Palaver. Go pick yourself up a hashtag Tad is terrible sticker, coffee mug, t-shirt,
Slander.
hoodie.
Or you can get the classic
pillow.
logo if you don't like slander.
That's boring.
Yeah, and then calendar-wise, the only thing I want to talk about, I already mentioned we are finishing this book. So on the 20th of May, we will be starting
Wizard and Glass.
So that's a lot of fun. And then we'll be back on the 6th, a fortnight from now, for the next roundtable. That not really a whole lot else to talk about. Nothing out of the ordinary calendar-wise. So yeah, let's jump on in over to the Wastelands. We are currently in Book 2, which is titled Lud, with the subtitle Heap of Broken Images. We are now in Chapter 6, Riddle and Wastelands, and we are on the tail end of this chapter, which is Subchapter 7 is where we're starting off. And then we are just carrying all the way through the end.
All the way.
Yes. So, going to finish this book out. It is not our decision, of course, how this book ends, but we will talk about that.
Yeah, please don't hold us accountable.
All right, so Subchapter 7, diving right in. The mono had been descending as they approached the notch in the wall, leaving them at under 30 feet above the ground. That made the crossover much more terrifying because when they emerged on the other side, they were horrifyingly high, 800 feet high, if not 1,000 feet. So imagine that.
That's jarring.
You're like 30 so feet, about normal for,
Yeah.
a lot of like over the street. Like Chicago has like those, I don't know what you call them. Like
above ground subways?
Yeah, like
railways?
Railways, yeah, not
Yeah.
sub, but yeah, exactly. The above ground trains. Imagine being on one of those and then it goes through a wall, and on the other side you're thousands of feet up. That
Yeah.
would be quite jarring.
Yeah, hundreds of feet to 1,000 feet. That's a long way up, too.
Yeah, I think if you're 800 feet, you could just call it 1,000. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
It says, Roland looked back to the wall, which had seemed huge, but now it seemed tiny. Below the wall were holes that looked like empty eye sockets. Black water and purple mist poured out into what looked like ancient stone fans. Roland thought that must be their waste system over the edge and into the pit. But it was not a pit, but a sunken plain. It looked as though the city was atop a massive elevator, and at some point the elevator had gone down, taking a piece of the world down with it. Now that's an interesting image
Visual,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, visual that King is building for us. Blaine's track sat over the fallen land. Below the track, rain clouds seemed to float in empty space. So that's quite a... Quite a way to start the episode here, of course, with this new subchapter. Also, I did miss Carol in the chat. Hi, Carol. Hope you had a good birthday last week.
Yeah.
So what do you got notes wise here?
So there was a break between episodes, and I forgot to take down a more detailed note. But there's something that happens at the end of subchapter 6, leading into this, and I don't remember what it is. Do you remember off the top of your head?
No, that's a long time ago.
Do your note. I'm going to do some research and figure out what that was. Go do your next note, and then I'll.
All right. So my note here, I struggle to truly imagine this. There is a lot that I really want to see because I can visualize it so starkly. But this is one that I can't wait for a filmmaker to show me what they see. Because honestly, I don't think my brain does justice for what King is describing here.
Yeah, I know. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that in our planet. Such a jarring drop like that.
Yeah.
From a city.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a cliff. I've seen a cliff. Everyone's seen a cliff. I mean, go watch Mission Impossible 3.
Yeah.
Everyone's seen a cliff. But to see a city sitting up there.
Yeah.
and then a train just just do.
Yeah, I can imagine a bit, but I just don't think my imagination is doing justice of what probably a filmmaker could show us there. So I cannot wait to see what we see on screen for this at some point.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right, what do you got next? Even if it's your next note there.
So my next note. Let me get back there. Sorry. It's a wonder that they can see anything with how fast they're already moving. I know it isn't top speed, but for the wall to be tiny already tells you just how fast they're cruising. They pass through it and Roland turns around and it already appears tiny. No,
I don't think that's what they're saying. I don't think it's saying that it's tiny to them right now. What it is, though, is like when you're on the inside in the city looking at the wall, it looks massive. But once you get on the outside
and you got the 1,000 extra feet with it.
It's like going from like your iPhone screen to an iMac screen.
Okay.
So I think that's what it is. Not necessarily that they're that far away from it yet, but just that the wall looked massive.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think Game of Thrones is like the biggest wall that I probably have seen on screen, but there's never a time that you're like deceived with it where it like looks like a small wall through like a small tunnel, but then you get to the backside of it, it's massive. Every time you see that wall, it's massive. But
yeah,
just imagine if like they had built like maybe like the inside of the wall is like higher elevation, so it just looks like a kind of a small wall, but then you go on the other side of it, it's the hundreds and hundreds of feet that it is. I think that's what it's talking about. Is like, seem big, holy shit. No, it's not. Look at this fucking vast...
look at this. Oh, okay.
That's how I interpret it.
Okay,
yeah.
So back to my first note in here. I went back to our last book club notes, and I pulled out this. This is what it was. So they passed through the gap in the wall, and Eddie and Susanna scream in unison. Jake took one look and clapped his hand over his eyes. Oy begins to bark wildly in the direct quote from the book. Roland stared down, eyes wide, lips set in a bloodless thin line like a scar. Understanding filled him like bright white light. Beyond the great wall of blood, the real wastelands began. So we go from that. That's the end of that's the last line. And then we just come back in and it's like, anyways, about this hole in the wall and about this draw. But
yeah.
Like that's what I was talking about with King. He does this all the time where it's like, and then the worst thing that they ever saw laid before them.
Yeah.
And they turned the corner and they saw a wheelchair. It's like, wait, what? Wait, no, hold on. Wait a minute. What were we talking about? Like, he does that. He, like, misdirects us. So.
Yeah. Well, I think because the section we just covered, I think, is really showing us the context of how much bigger the outside of this is.
Yeah.
I think we're probably going to get a little bit more as we move on here as to what ultimately they're seeing.
He just doesn't dive into it right away.
Yeah.
He builds it up, and then he's like, hold on. We're still building. We're not there yet. We're still building.
Yeah. So then my last note before we move on here, the size of this thing here is insane. I mean, months ago we talked about how this city is one of the biggest things that we've seen in this world by far, and now this city looks like a gnat against this wall.
Yeah.
When you see the other side of it. So it's insane. I mean,
and the size comparison for the city, we also need to remember, is bigger than New York City.
Yeah, or at least equal to. Like there's all the New York people kind of saw some elements of it where, oh, that looks really familiar.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not talking a little tiny,
Salt Lake City.
Yeah, 3-horse town. We're talking about a pretty big metropolis, and it looks tiny on the other side of this wall.
Yeah, exactly.
So then moving on here, it says Susanna asked what is holding the rail up, and Blaine said the beam, of course, and then offered to add magnification to the lower screens. This made even Roland feel vertigo, as the land below seemed to move up at them. The picture Roland saw was ugly beyond his past knowledge of ugliness. And let's just pause for a second and say
he knows a lot about ugliness.
Yeah, we've just what we've seen. We know that he's seen a lot. And I can only imagine how much more he's seen that we have not been made aware of yet, or if we ever will, really, right? Because we kind of get a sense that Roland's been around the block a time or two, and I just don't imagine that even if every element of this book never moved away from Roland's entire story, we probably still couldn't get his entire story. That's how I interpret Roland anyway. And it says that the knowledge sadly was wide indeed. So adding to that, when what they saw was a land fused and blasted by some horrible cataclysm that likely caused this land to be as sunken as they now found it. The surface was distorted black glass that came up into the spalls and twists that could not be called hills, and twisted down into deep cracks and folds that could not be called valleys. A few stunted trees flailed at the sky with the magnification. They seemed to be reaching out at the content like arms of lunatics. That's a happy fun thought, isn't it? There were clusters of thick ceramic pipes coming out of the glassy surface. Some were dead, but others glowed with blue-green light as if they were furnaces burning under the surface. Mutant flying things that looked like pterodactyls cruised between these pipes, occasionally biting at each other. Some stacks housed whole gaggles of these creatures, seeming to warm themselves with the fires beneath. They pass above the crack that zigzagged the north-south course like a dead riverbed, except it was not dead inside with thin threads of deep scarlet that pulse like a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Smaller ones branched off from the main one, and Susanna, who read Tolkien, thought it was what Frodo and Sam saw when they reached the crack of doom. A volcano erupted below them, spewing flames and rocks, and lava clotted up into the air towards them. For an instant, it seemed as though they would be consumed by fire, and Jake screamed and pulled his feet up, clutching Oi. Then, in a John Wayne drawl, Blaine told Jake not to worry about it, and it reminded him that he was seeing it through magnification. So that tells you it's a pretty good image if it's enough to startle someone, that they're basically forgetting that they're looking through it's not getting grainy as they're zooming in type thing. Is especially would have been impressive here in 91 when this was written.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much now. We get some pretty startling screen qualities nowadays.
Yeah.
The flare died, and many rocks, some as big as factories, fell into the soundless storm. Susanna found herself hypnotized by the bleak horrors passing below them, and the Detta part of her drinking this all in, understanding it, recognizing it. In a way, this was the place that Detta had always longed to find, a physical place that reflected her mind and heart. Everything she had seen up to this point paled in comparison to this fantastic, endless vista of desolation. That's a fun little turn of phrase. They had come to the drawers as they entered the wastelands, and it was all around them. So, as I said, I think that's kind of probably more the element of what they were screaming and covering their eyes at.
Yeah.
Because this is pretty, and just imagine they were just seeing it from afar. Zooming in makes it even more horrific. So, pretty crazy.
And Blaine didn't exactly give them a chance to answer. He's just like, oh, let's see it through magnification. There it goes.
Yeah, exactly. So the beam, my note here, the beam is holding the track up. That's a strange thought. Certainly the most physical the beam has ever seemed before. Could be that the beams are protecting the tracks from damage.
Yeah, there's something with the beams. I was going to put a note in here, and then you already had yours, so I was just going to tag onto it. We've already seen the beams have some kind of magnification as well as affecting atmospheric and
growth,
and animals and growth and plant life and everything like that. So it makes sense that the beams are some kind of a force that, like you said, are protecting the tracks from damage, because it doesn't sound exactly like hospitable down there.
No. Suddenly it seems that this is basically the only path, right, with Blaine. Like, there was never going to be a way to get past this.
How would they get through? Yeah, there's no way to get through this.
There's no way. This is unlivable. Even for someone as capable as Roland, there's no way I don't think he would survive this. So my next note, the sheer scale of this is hard to credit in your brain. This is an IMAX type scene for sure. I know it's probably going to be TV that we get it on, but damn, this feels huge.
Yeah. And that's my note adding on to that is that new screen type that you showed me with the new Top Gun Maverick movie, where it has the side screens.
Yeah.
Where, like, when they're in the fighter jets and they're fighting, you get just, like, peripheral stuff. It's not high definition or anything like that, but it still gives you the sense that it's
more
in the cockpit.
Yeah.
This would be one of those instances. You're in a train and you just get, like, the side of the burning sky and the mountains all around you and everything like that.
Yeah.
That wall and everything.
It's more encompassing. I'm trying to think of the right word.
Yeah. Like, it surrounds you, like surround sound, but it's visual.
Yeah.
So this is a great thing, but yeah, you're right. It's probably going to end up on the small screen, unfortunately.
I mean,
we think
story-wise, I think it works out better on the small screen.
Yes.
Anyway. I remember only now realizing that Blaine was not just a speed modifier, but the only way through this. Like, I guess I could just kind of mention that already. I know we had been sitting with the idea of the Wastelands before. I mean, this is the title of the book, for God's sake. It's not a surprise that a wasteland is now before us.
Yeah.
But I thought of it maybe being more like a desert. I think a desert could be a wasteland, or maybe that one section of the Talisman with the fire, like, fields and stuff, like those kind of things you can call a wasteland too. So things that are a little bit more survival. This is like unlike anything we've ever seen before, and all of my preconceived notions up to this point of what a wasteland might entail Yeah, they were nothing.
No, yeah,
they were a walk in the park
absolutely.
compared to what King is actually showing us here. So I just remember this being a big moment for me of realization of reading. Where I was like, oh shit! Like, so Blaine's not just like let's go faster. Blaine is literally the only fucking way they're gonna get. They're gonna
Yeah,
make
they
this
wouldn't be
trip.
able to get through this otherwise.
No.
That's there's no way.
Yeah, so to cross without, so impossible to cross without Blaine. But now I see that I was wrong in terms of what kind of wasteland. Going through an active volcano would seem like, less treacherous than what King is painting this out to be, and I mean it includes a volcano too.
Not going around an active volcano, going
Through Yeah,
an
exactly.
active volcano
Yeah.
is what you're saying.
Exactly.
So,
That would be less formidable than what King is building this all out to be, I think.
and this is where, for my note, it's a lot of this description makes me visualize a planet that has been destroyed from orbit by spaceships. Star Wars, we just saw this in Mandalorian. We see Mandalore for the first time, which was destroyed.
Yeah.
Or
from
Halo.
orbital.
Yeah, Halo describes it too, that the Covenant glass a planet. That's what they call
Yeah.
it, is they glass a planet.
Yeah.
They turn the surface from dirt to this glass-like material where nothing can live, and it's like,
which happens in real life, and that goes to what Carol says. She says, so nuclear or atomic are both dropped here at some point, because the glassy element that was called out, because that's a real thing. When we tested like the Trinity bomb in Nevada, the sand in the area of the blast zone actually turned to glass.
yeah.
So it's which is insane.
And we need to remember that that nuclear comment from Carol that comes up to play in a later subchapter today.
Yeah, and I think Eddie's already mentioned it too. Was it with when we had the mutant bees, where he's like, "Man, your great old ones nuked themselves to shit," or something. Like,
Yeah.
Eddie called it out to where, and I mean, obviously,
I have-
all three
yeah.
of the New York people live in the Cold War,
The post-nuclear era, yeah.
Well, during the Cold War too.
Yeah.
So like the
yeah.
threat for them of nuclear war is far higher than what we've experienced.
Yeah,
Now,
because it didn't end until '89, right? And
Susanna is early enough that she hasn't experienced like the missile crisis and stuff. So she didn't have that necessarily. She did actually.
'cause
She would
Kennedy's
have. Yeah.
dead.
No, that's true. Yeah, she would
Yeah.
have. So she would have gone through all that. So it's probably the most realistic to her. Jake probably a little bit as well. I think Eddie. I think it's there, but I don't think it's probably as heavily in his mind as it would have been in Susanna. It's just based on history there.
yeah, because '89 is when the Berlin Wall went down, and basically the fall of communism was right around there.
Yeah.
And he's from '87,
Yeah.
so yeah,
86, isn't it?
'87.
The book's 87. Is he from 87? I thought he was 86.
I thought he was '87 because I thought it was 10 years between him and Jake. 77 and
maybe.
87.
So I love that Susanna is a Tolkien fan of the group here. Of course, Tolkien is timeless, but certainly not. It was not as in vogue in the 80s or even the 70s as it would have been in the 50s and 60s when Susanna was growing up. So
Yeah.
I just love that. I feel like that's a perfect thing because, like, I don't know. Sometimes I get a little bit annoyed because I think King just makes even the most like blue collar of people, these people that can like quote like deep literary things, and I'm like, that's not real, man. Just
I was reading this most recent novel the other day, and it's like,
yes,
dude, you don't sound like you can read.
yeah,
Like, yeah.
some blue collar like trash man that's like didn't go past 6th grade isn't reading like Dickens. Like
Yeah.
I just think sometimes King is so like because he's a literary guy, and I get that. Kind of like if I was going to write something, there would probably be a lot of movie things in there
Absolutely.
would probably be outside of the realm of reality.
Yeah.
So it is kind of cool that it isn't that all three of them are like, oh yeah, Tolkien and stuff, because I think that Tolkien did kind of get a little bit less. It obviously in our time it's way bigger now because the movies that came out in the early 2000s. But I just don't think that Jake and Eddie probably would have been as influenced by Tolkien as she was. So I'm glad that
The closest Jake would have had would be either reading the novels, and he's only in 6th grade.
yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, he's at Piper, yes, but let's be honest, that's not exactly 6th grade reading material. He might have had the Hobbit cartoon by now, before he was drawn, but it doesn't sound like he would be watching that kind of thing at home, you know?
Yeah. Not unless it's on his dad's network.
And we know Eddie is not reading Tolkien.
No.
He had more important things to do, like getting high with his brother.
My last couple notes here. The attitude of Detta towards this is really something when you consider what they're actually seeing here. I knew Detta was dark, but goddamn,
Yeah, right?
just drinking it in.
She's like, oh, hey, this is the drawers. Yeah, this looks familiar. Do.
yeah. And then my last note. This is hell.
Yeah.
This is like legitimately like hell on
Fire,
earth type.
horrifying
creatures,
creatures that
like-
are unimaginable in size
And you can
shape.
get a sense too that everything's just poison, right? I think that's
Yeah.
where it comes down to. Like, yeah, Roland can maybe fight against like the pterodactyl things, but like I just feel like this entire area is so poisoned that they'd all be dead within a couple days. from
Yeah.
the poisons involved. That's all. That's just how I interpret it. Not even that there's anything necessarily that King's saying like, oh, it's all toxic, but just looking at everything we're seeing,
It's the reason
fucking
it's called
toxic.
the Wastelands.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's toxic. It's
not healthy for human
No,
inhabitant.
All right, so jumping over subchapter 8 now. That's subchapter 7, which that was quite a subchapter.
Right, and the thing is, we're just going to keep going.
Yeah.
Like literally, the first part here says they can see the lands, though poisoned, are not void of life. They see misshapen things which don't look like men or animals. The majority gather around chimneys thrusting out of the earth. They couldn't see them clearly, and they were glad. Even with magnification, we're still not getting down far enough because again, 800 to 1,000 feet down.
Yeah.
Over these large creatures giant stork over these creatures, large stark like giant stork creatures. They're moving slowly. Every now and then they would just pause, bend down, and quickly pluck something from the ground, like a heron bending down to grab a fish. Roland felt like the others did, but it was repulsive to look at these creatures, but they couldn't look away. They say these giant creatures are feeding off these other creatures that are so far away they can't see them, but they can see the stork-like creatures.
Yeah.
Instantly reminds me of Creatures from the Mist.
Yeah,
Just
oh,
how
yeah.
giant they are and everything like that.
Especially that one, right?
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm
The
thinking about.
suicide
Well,
beast.
you see a couple of them. You see the suicide one, and then you see the one when they're in the parking lot. Like there's a giant one in the parking lot as well.
Yeah, it's big. But
Yeah.
when you then look at the one that we see that eventually, okay, this is all over.
Yeah.
Let's just kill ourselves. That one just suddenly you're like, oh god, that one by the store was tiny. It's like you see like a moose, and you're like, oh my god, that thing's huge. Then you see like a giraffe or an elephant, you're like, never mind, the moose isn't that big.
Yeah, a moose is a moose is massive, and then you go on a boat and see a blue whale, and you're just like, never mind.
Yeah, never mind.
Never
Exactly,
mind.
exactly. Let's see. My note here. This is one of those things I have a hard time really picturing in my mind in any clear way. I can get the basic sense, but it's something I would really love to see on screen to really paint the details for me. Because this is like,
Yeah.
I feel like I've got vague images, but man, I want to see someone put a finer point on this. So like, I don't know, because sometimes my mind could really fill something in, and I can get like every detail. And other times my mind just struggles with it a little bit. And this one, I think I'm only getting like probably 50 or 60% of the picture really here. So it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons why I liked the style of books that I had when I read The Dark Tower. Not the little paperback ones, but the little bit bigger ones that had the illustrations in it.
Yeah.
They had an illustration of this. The big stork-like creatures and everything like that. So
Yeah.
maybe I should find those and see if I can get the images over to you.
Yeah.
So going on, Eddie says that this was no nuclear war. This is the part that I was saying, remember this. His voice sounded like that of a child. Blaine says it wasn't, and it was a lot worse than that, and it isn't over yet. So pause for a second.
That's comforting.
Yeah, pause for a second. Back to Carol's comment about nuclear or atomic war. Blaine says it wasn't that. It was something worse,
And to us,
and it's not over.
yeah, that's crazy.
Oh my.
That's madness.
So Blaine goes on to say he has reached the point where he usually powers up and asks if they've seen enough. Susan says, "Oh God, yes." Blaine then asks if he should turn off the viewers. The cruel teasing note was back in Blaine's voice. In the distance, a jagged mountain range seemed to bite the sky. Roland says to do it or don't, but stop playing games. Blaine says for someone who came begging for a ride, they are being rude. Susanna says they earned their ride, and Eddie points out that Blaine is doing what he was made to do. Take people places. He's a train. Blaine doesn't respond with words, instead hisses like a cat. Eddie wishes he had kept his big mouth shut.
Let's just say Eddie wishing he kept his big mouth shut. I feel like that's something we've heard a lot, and we're probably going to hear a lot more as the series carries on,
It's
right?
Eddie, right?
Yeah, I just don't think that's going to... I don't think that's going to change as we move
This is
on
our
here.
first full. This is our first full book with Eddie. He's in it from start to finish.
Yeah.
He was introduced in the last book, and I think it's time that we can put that stamp on his character. Yep, this is going to happen again.
Exactly.
Eddie wishes. Eddie wishes he kept his big mouth shut. The air begins to fill in with curves of color. The carpet reappears again. The lighting reappeared, and they are again sitting in the Barony coach. A low humming begins to vibrate through the walls. It was the engines beginning to cycle up. Jake feels an unseen hand push him back in his seat, and Oi looks around whining and starts to lick Jake's face. On the route map, their green dot begins to flash faster. The dot is just slightly southeast of the violet circle with the word Lud printed on it. Susanna asks if they will feel it when they go through the sound barrier, and he says nope, and to relax. And so that my note here, we already kind of talked about it. There's something worse than nuclear war.
Yeah.
How hard is that for you to wrap your head around? I know you're a big fan of history, and especially Oppenheimer, the Manhattan Project, dropping the nuclear bombs, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
you've read books about just that.
Yeah,
not all of World War II.
Yeah,
just that.
Yeah, many books for sure.
Can you imagine something worse?
I mean, I'll just answer that by saying I don't think I can even truly imagine nuclear weapons. Like I've done as much reading as you possibly can, but I still don't think that there's like a full comprehension of what that truly means. So yeah, going beyond that, no, that's absolutely beyond the pale.
It's one of those things where it's like trying to describe to someone who's blind or colorblind. I've seen videos of this where they're trying to describe colors to people. While you can describe what a color looks like, until you put those colorblind glasses on where they can actually see them and you see their reactions, they break down into tears.
Yeah.
It is just too much for them. So imagine something like that times 1,000 or times 1,000,000 or something like that. I think that's where we're at with this.
To me, like in my brain, nuclear is basically the border of what. Even there's elements of nuclear I don't think I could fully understand, like complete nuclear annihilation, like nuclear holocaust for the whole planet. I think that's beyond the pale of comprehension. So I think when you're talking beyond it, that's like Lovecraftian to me. Like that gets to the realm of like just pure, beyond the pale horror. So,
yeah, and the most chilling part for that line from Blade is that it isn't over yet. Like it's still going.
Yeah.
So for us, nuclear bomb, it's drop the bomb, deal with the radiation.
Yeah.
That's 100 years, give or take, depending on how much, what kind of bomb and all that kind of stuff. And you know all about that. But this is something that's slow and progressive. Do you kind of get that feeling too?
Yeah.
That it's not over, it's still happening?
Yeah.
Did someone do something that causes like it's infuriating that I don't know these things.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's not. Again,
maybe it's better not to know these.
Yeah,
you got a point.
Because that is the Lovecraftian thing where people that do glimpse certain elements go completely mad, right? Or the deadlights and it type stuff.
The
right?
jaunt.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The jaunt? Yeah,
exactly. And my answer, I love this because for us, nothing is worse than nuclear war. Also, King not defining exactly what it is and letting us leaving it to our imaginations.
Oh yeah,
it's the Bruce the Shark thing, right?
Yep.
Like Bruce the Shark is not that scary. Jaws is scary because Bruce didn't work, so they had to pretty much shoot around him.
So you didn't see him until like the final act.
You only see him a couple times. So
and very
it's very choosy when you see him and how you see him. But like because it is more scary when you don't see him, and I think it's the same thing here. Again, maybe King doesn't write it because literally, how do you write something where again it's just I feel like we're reaching the limits of human imagination, even with nuclear, right? Like I think we all are in a world we've lived with them for so long. We all accept the idea that nuclear shit exists. But still, just think about the mechanics of like a relatively small bomb that's going to, for a fraction of a second, be like 1% of the sun.
Yeah.
Like, just, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
No.
And blow up an entire city. Like, no, that just, like, it's like one of those things, you kind of know it, but truly to understand what it is, like, it's beyond us, I think.
Exactly.
Also, this is probably the point that I figured this was not some Mad Max style post-apocalyptic Earth. Throughout the books up to this point, I bounced back and forth due to things like the Bible or the Beatles and some other crazy stuff that we've seen from our world. But for me, this mostly settled it. This is not a Earth that is like even millennia beyond some sort of disaster. This is a completely different planet.
Yeah.
Because I debated that throughout first time reading this. I'm like, okay, is this Mad Max? Is this just Earth 1,000 years from now?
The Book of Eli kind of thing.
Yeah, and when you see the Beatles and Sit Go gas pump with the guy waving it around in the first book, and the Beatles, the Bible, Jesus, all this stuff, like it all feels like, okay, this is Earth in the future.
Yeah.
And then there's some other things you see where like maybe not. And this
You get the doors and everything like that to the beach, and there's the question: are these going to a different reality, or are they going to the past? Like where we, what? There's still some ambiguity, but for here this is the period. Done. Argument over. File it away. We're done.
It's kind of like in the movie. They did a really good job because they showed the sky, and you see like different moons.
Yeah.
There's one that's really big and close. And I think that's just an easy, cool, effective way in like a couple second shot to communicate to the audience this is an Earth.
Yeah.
So whereas with the book, King's kind of been dangling me around to where I'm going back and forth on my until this moment where I'm like, okay, yeah, this isn't Earth. There is almost no way imaginable, even with the biggest imagination that you could imagine, Earth turns into this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Let's see. And then Carol says humanity pushing forward to do even more to destroy others and themselves, and people, things still live in it. Awful, yeah, and that's something else too. All these creatures that have evolved to live in it, which is crazy. And then Carol says Multiverse King did it first. Yes, he did, and the connected universe. Well, I don't know about first because Marvel did start it in like the 60s.
I was going to say,
but still, King.
Yeah. When was the first time Marvel ever did a multiverse in DC?
Well, yeah.
We'd have to look.
Yeah, I'd have to look.
That's a geekery
but
itself.
Still, King's been doing it consistently for a long time.
Oh yeah,
so which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
What do you got?
Eddie getting under Blaine's skin is satisfying to me. Blaine seems like a jerk, or as Jake says, a pain. So, yeah, poor Oi here. He probably hates all of this. Seeing these mammoth predators, and everything like that, and all of a sudden they get closer.
Yeah.
So much that Jake picks up his feet and everything like that. And then Blaine hisses and everything like that. This is not a happy instance for Oi.
Plus, most animals don't even like being in the car. They don't like that. Like it's motion that they can't really credit. So now putting him in this thing. I mean, the hand pushing Jake is just the actual motion of the train going faster.
Yeah, dogs will get used to it, but the first time riding, a lot of times dogs are nervous as hell.
Yeah, they don't like it.
They don't get it.
I would say
some dogs don't.
I would say some dogs get used to it. Some dogs
don't.
Just don't. They never like it. They always get nervous and stuff. And then when you brake and they have to wobble, some dogs just aren't into it. So,
exactly.
Yeah. Poor Oi.
And then my last note here: a purple circle to represent Lud is just a sick joke. That's horrible. Because it's purple gas, right?
Yeah,
that destroys the city. I went back and looked. I double checked in
very
the
jokery,
book.
yeah.
Yeah, very jokery, and it even covers it in subchapter 7, where it says the purple gas is spilling out in like waste and everything like that.
Yeah.
So for the route map to have Lud as a purple circle, a violet purple circle, exactly like the gas, I'm like, Jesus Christ, Blade, that's just that you're already over the line, dude. But come on.
So the question is was it always purple? Or did he
change it? I
think
he changed it.
Hi, Mark. Welcome.
Mark.
Yeah, I think we're doing good. I can't speak for Peter, but I think I'm doing good.
I'm doing terrible. I'm in a room with Tad. No, I'm just kidding.
Oi.
Yeah, that's a good boy. Okay, so moving on here.
Too bad I don't have a sad, terrified oi sound.
Oi?
To go along with this.
I'm glad you don't.
This section.
You don't deserve one. So Jake says he knows something. The others look around at him and they realize he's not talking to them. He's speaking to the route map. Blaine doesn't exactly have a face. He's like Oz the Great and Terrible, but the map would work as a focusing point. I know something about you, Blaine, Jake says. Blaine says that is that a fact, little trailhand, doing the whole John Wayne drawl. Eddie leans over.
Can't trust anyone that does a John Wayne impression.
What?
Right?
Why not?
Just untrustworthy.
It's
especially creatures like trains.
Not a creature, an artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence that do impressions. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
That's
all the AIs right now.
Strike one. Eddie leans over and whispers in Jake's ear to be careful as they don't think that Big Blaine knows about Little Blaine. Jake nods and pulls away. Still looking at the route map, Jake says he knows why Blaine released the gas and killed all those people. And it wasn't just because they solved his riddle. Blaine doesn't respond with words. He just laughs. That's not a good sign. It is an abnormal...
laughing machines? You don't like that?
No. No.
You don't want Amazon and Echoes and Googles to just laugh randomly?
Specifically, I don't like that someone's accusing them of something and they just laugh. I get that a lot from you. Like that. Thank you very much. It's an abnormal, distracted laugh. That laugh they were discovering was much more unpleasant than either his bad imitations or his melodramatic nature and somehow childish threats. Below them, the slow trans turbines had cycled up to steady thrum. Even with the view to the outside cutoff, the sensation of speed was very clear. And I should have taken a note down about that. I can vouch for that. It's like the plane.
It's like when you're on a plane, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
you can feel it.
Yeah, because I can't remember, we calculated based on the distances and times, and it was something like double or more of what a plane speed is on the ground, because a plane usually gets like 300-400 miles an hour for takeoff. So I mean, in the air it's going faster, but you can't really feel it when you're in the air.
Yeah.
When you're taking off, you could feel that. And I think we did the math on it a couple episodes back, because Blaine says it's this amount of time and we'll get there this quickly.
I have that.
And it was,
I have it notated.
I think it was even double what planes do in the sky, like in terms of speed. So yeah, just think of like on the ground, planes go like 400 miles an hour. We know what that feels like. Now imagine multiplying that, multiple times. That's terrifying to think about.
Yeah, I have the math saved still for the, and I actually bring it up in a later subchapter here. So
Okay.
we'll definitely go over that. So the sensation of speed is very clear. Jake says Blaine is planning to kill himself and take them with him. Little Blaine moans, says no, and if they provoke him, they will drive him to do it. And his voice is either cut off or drowned out by Big Blaine's laugh. The sound is high, shrill, and jagged, so we get like the Joker laugh.
I'm just gonna pause right now. Mark Hamill voicing Blaine.
right?
I mean,
Right?
Come on.
Just that
Come
evil
on.
Joker laugh. Yeah.
I mean, the hiss, everything we're seeing right now. I know my original choice was Tim Curry, and I still think Tim would do an amazing job. But dude, Mark would fucking kill this.
Getting down here in the weeds with this section,
Oh,
you're like,
dude.
oh, dude, Mark.
I mean, he would
Yeah.
he would kill it, man.
Right?
He's a genius voice actor.
Yeah. And so, I scrolled down too soon. The sound is high, shrill, and jagged, like the sound of a mortally ill man laughing in a delirium. The lights begin to flicker as if the force of these mechanical gusts of mirth were drawing too much power. Their shadows jumped like phantoms on the wall. So his laughing is now affecting the lights. That's not creepy in the slightest. We've never seen that done, or anything like that.
Usually in horror movies with
Yeah,
some sort
exactly.
of demon or creature,
Mm-hmm.
more so than a monster machine.
Yep.
Which, hey, we're starting and ending this book with monster machines, right? Had Shardik
Shardik,
and then
yeah.
Blaine here. It's a bookend there.
Nice and neat.
Yeah, indeed.
And so I got a direct quote here for Blaine's response instead of just his laugh. "See you later, alligator," Blaine said through his wild laughter. His voice, calm as ever, seemed to be on an entirely separate track, further emphasizing his divided mind. So that I want to pause right there. So that right there, he's talking while laughing. So it's like doubling up there. Dude, that would drive me nuts, having to listen to that.
yeah.
So he says, "After a while, Crocodile, don't forget to write." Below Roland's band of pilgrims, the slow trans engines throbbed enhanced in hard, steady beats. And on the route map at the front of the carriage, the pulsing green dot had now begun to move precipitously along the lighted line toward the last stop, Topeka, where Blaine the Mono clearly meant to end all of their lives. And that's the end of the subchapter. So we got some notes here. I got 2 notes, and then you got your one. Jake is just so ballsy and brazen right here to call Blaine out like that. Maybe even a little bit reckless.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't expect it from him. Like, just, dude, kid, what?
Yeah.
Like giving him that look, just like, damn.
Yeah.
If you want to tell how crazy someone or something is, just listen to the laugh.
I mean, yeah, you got clowns that can prove that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know. Pennywise's laugh is pretty innocuous, isn't it?
Mm-mm.
It's not evil at all.
Oh,
it's just a clown laugh.
No. Yeah, well, you just said clowns were evil. You can't have it both
No,
ways.
Joker clown is evil, but Pennywise, he's
Evil.
He's an innocuous clown.
Stop it.
So my note here: Blaine is dangerous. I think we have all understood that. Everything we've seen from Jake up to this point, from the very beginning of this book, basically.
We were told that he would just kill him with blue lightning, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I know even before that,
Yeah.
when Jake's in our
Oh,
world
right,
still,
right,
Blaine is a pain. Like all the stuff that he sees and whatever, even before getting into this world,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of us had any doubt at all. And I think me as a reader, I had my guard up a little bit, but like, cool. Once they got on, I think I may have let my guard down a bit because it's like, okay, cool. Like they got his riddle, he didn't kill him there.
Yeah, because we were worried about what the pubes told him.
Yeah.
Is that, if you go near him, you're going to get blue lightning, and they thought they were going to start
And
getting it.
there probably would have been lightning teeth too.
No, stop it. No. Bad Tad.
Like Luke Skywalker. We're about to see that in theaters
Stop
here
it.
next week.
Stop it. And so we get past that. They solve the riddle. They get on the train. They escape the gas. We're like, oh, okay. Danger's over, right? oh, we see how bad it is outside. Well, good thing they're in this nice, safe train. Everything's fine. Nope. Jake figured out, yeah, he's going to kill us all.
Yeah. Yeah, so we've always known he's been dangerous, but I don't think we knew what kind of danger and how wide the danger. But now we realize that he intends to kill himself and the Tet with him. So suddenly I feel very, very uncomfortable with being on this train here.
Right?
Like, because again, there was a part of me where I'm like, okay, cool, we're safe now. We're on the train. He's getting us through the wastelands and stuff. But then Jake calls him out there, and I'm like, what? Shit. Like, shit, this isn't good. And yeah, I have to imagine, I'm speaking for most of us, did any of us stop once we hit, like, this Blaine stuff? No matter if it was in the late at night when you're reading this the first time, whatever, we didn't stop, right? All of us just, you couldn't put it down until you got to the very end here. Yeah, but that was my note. Moving over to subchapter 9 now. Over in the chat here, let's see. Ryan is joining us. He says, "Hi, I haven't watched you guys in a minute. Have you touched on Blaine being a blue train and then up? Because I can't remember if it was Ryan that emailed us on that, but we've actually covered that on a roundtable before with basically the suspicion that it was actually the blue train was Blaine, because Blaine BL and then Ain at the end. So blue, if you capitalize the first two letters, and then the last few letters of train, you get Blaine.
Yep.
So there is some suspicion that, ultimately, maybe even that little Blaine could be, if I remember right, could be Patricia that's been dominated and taken over by Blaine that already destroyed.
He was going to be destroyed, and then he took over Patricia.
Yeah. So
and forced Patricia down to being Little Blaine.
Yeah, and Little Blaine's just this like subservient, like captured, like dominated thing, right?
Yeah, we covered that on a roundtable. We never brought it up.
It's been a long time, though. Yeah, for sure.
We didn't want to bring it up on the book club until we got to this point. At least to this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is an interesting thought, Ryan, and it's not a happy one on top of everything else.
Yeah, no, it's not. But it does, because, I mean, we throughout this book, we've had a few times where they're like, they got it backwards. Like, Blaine's pink and Patricia is blue. Like,
that's interesting.
Yeah, so that is definitely interesting for sure. Let's see. Going into subchapter 9 now, it says the laughter finally stops and the lights is glowing steadily again. So, see, the lights are all normal again.
Yeah.
Blaine then offers them some music and says that he has a sampling from over 300 levels, which is an interesting turn of phrase. He tells them concerti are his favorites, but he also has symphonies, operas, and nearly endless supply of popular music. He then offers up Wagog music and says that it's something like a bagpipe and it is played on the upper levels of the tower. Which that's an intriguing thing to say.
Excuse me, what?
Jake questions the name of the instrument in a curious manner, and Roland asks what he means by the upper levels of the tower. So Roland locked onto it, same as us, because it's like, wait a minute, what did he just say?
Wait, what'd you say?
And Roland's the same as us, I think, because, I mean, we're here now in the tail end of the third book, and we still don't know shit about what the Dark Tower is. So any element, my ears perk up, and I think Roland is equally perking up there. Blaine just laughs and is silent otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's gotta love that. Just some clown train laughing off the questions instead of answering them.
Yeah.
So then my first note here, as unimpressive as this music selection sounds today in the age of MP3s, which actually MP3s are kind of probably out of style now.
Yeah.
But Spotify, I mean, all of us, most of us have some sort of subscription that gives us access to a vast library of music from all recorded music history, right? Consider that this was written literally the same year that CDs surpassed cassette tapes. So I looked it up. The CDs surpassed vinyl in, I think it was 88 or 89.
Cassettes.
And then cassette tapes got surpassed in 91. So the year this book was written was the year that compact discs, music-wise. And I thought, and that's what flashed and made me look it up, because I remember when I got my very first CD player and got a CD in it. Honestly, it was about 91, 92-ish. So I was like, let me look this up here. Because again, let's get in context of when King wrote this, what music meant, right? Like, a vinyl holds only a few, CD only holds a few. You're decades and decades from a CD or an MP3 where suddenly there'll be this device that'll hold, 300-400 songs.
Yeah.
So for Blaine to have, all this music is, at the time, would have been startling to people. Whereas to us, we could kind of just go, I've got Spotify. That doesn't sound all that interesting. It's good to remind the context of when it was written.
When it
'cause,
was
like,
written,
holy
yeah.
shit! That, and also think of what the 3 content members are thinking,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because like Susanna doesn't know what the hell a compact disc is. She's vinyl era.
None of them do, really.
Eddie would potentially know, just
Maybe.
on the fringes of when it was, because they came.
Oh, it was invented, but
They came out in the late 70s, like 79, I think, but it took a while for them to really get out there, and they're obviously super expensive and stuff. So Eddie may have been aware of them. I guarantee he probably didn't own one because he isn't
Yeah.
wealthy
Yeah.
or anything.
I just looked it up just because I was curious. Spotify has over 100 million tracks and 5 million podcast titles,
Yeah, so just insane. So
including Dark Tower Play.
So for us, I just love giving the context there because this would have been an absolute wonder for the readers as well as the wonder for the folks in the books here, the 3 content members from New York. Hell, even in our days, in our day in high school in the early 2000s, this would have been impressive. Like when I read this book the first time, it was impressive.
Yeah.
Because MP3 players existed, or they theoretically they were existing, because I remember in like 7th grade reading like a science magazine that talked about like in theory what a MP3 player could be, and I remember just being like, oh dude, I would love that. But I mean, when we were in high school, dude, we still just had Discmen.
iPods were released on October 23rd, 2001. First iPod was able to hold 1,000 songs and it had a 10-hour battery
But
life.
like we have like the Sony Discman in high school and stuff. So this would have been impressive when I read this the first time. So
Yeah.
it's just interesting to me to contextualize it a
And
little bit.
my note here just says, yeah, it's a little bit more advanced than our iPod Classics that we had, right after high school.
Yeah.
Able to hold 120 gigabytes worth of music. That was it.
Yeah.
And everything. And that was actually like the 3rd generation of iPod Classics. Like the first thing we had was like Nanos, which was like 4 gigabytes of music.
Yeah.
And he's talking here that he has countless things from different levels of the tower too.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that it's not just, from this level of the tower.
Well, and we don't even really know what that means, right?
Yeah.
It's like that. Like I said, he said, what did he say?
upper-
Sampling from 300 levels, and it's like
300 levels.
What
And
the
then he
fuck does
also
that
says
mean?
the Wagog music is something like a bagpipe and is played on the upper levels of the tower.
so. It's like what people at the higher floors of the tower.
Yeah,
Like it's just
so, yeah,
it's
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 confusing.
an intriguing thing, and Roland obviously caught that as well. Also, just wanted to shout out hello to Dirty Mike and Zach also showing up in the chat. Welcome. So let's see. Also, a fun little world building thing here introduces us some mid-world instruments.
Is it mid-world instruments? Or is
mean-
it a different level of the tower?
It's
Like,
not
what-
ours. So
Yeah, it's not. Where is this from? Another thing to confirm that, this is in our world.
Yeah, exactly. So my ears perked up probably as much as Roland's talking about instruments being played at the highest levels of the tower. Very provocative of the old train here.
Yeah, and then I just put a note adding to that. And then the bastard is silent when Roland asks about it. What a jerk. Like, Roland wants clarification, and then Blaine just laughs at him.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Stupid train.
Stupid Blaine. Blaine is a pain.
Yeah, so then it says, going on here, let's see. Eddie asks if Blaine has any ZZ Top. Blaine is all too eager and says he does and offers up some Tube Snake Boogie. Eddie tells him on second thought he will pass. Roland then asks Blaine why he plans on killing himself. Jake says because he's a pain.
Again, another example of King. We finished the last subchapter with, everyone's going to die, and now we're talking about music.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, wait, what? No, go back to that other thing.
Yeah, Blaine says because he is bored and he is aware he is suffering a degenerative disease that humans call going insane, losing touch with reality, going Looney Tunes, blowing a fuse, not playing with a full deck, etc. That's a fun number of turns of phrases that he uses there. And also, a machine going mad.
Not good.
It shouldn't even be a real thing, right?
Not possible.
It shouldn't even be possible. So the fact
Right.
that just like we mentioned, was it book 1 when Roland mentioned something about possessed machines?
Demons and machines is what he says.
Yeah, he says something because was it with Jake in the
He doesn't
in the first
trust.
book?
He doesn't trust machinery because there can be demons in it.
Yeah, and we remember saying that where it's like, dude, you don't see possessed machines a lot, even like our horror stuff. Like, I think there's obviously some Stephen King exceptions, but ultimately that's just a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
But then he says he has repeated diagnostics and he is failing to find out what is wrong, and he has decided it is beyond his ability to repair. He goes on that serving the people of this world became pointless centuries ago, and serving a few remaining in Lud became silly not long after that. He says that he carried on until David Quick arrived and then asked if Roland believes a machine can go senile. Roland says he doesn't know. I love how short Roland's being. Like, in general, Roland, like, I feel like the other ones are all maybe leaning in and engaging the Blaine a little bit more. Roland feels like he's just kind of leaning back, and, like, everything he's saying is very quick. He's not expounding on answers or anything. He's just like, I don't care. Do it or don't. Quit playing games. Here, he's like, can Machine go say, I don't know. Like, I just feel like Roland's very different from the others.
Quit yanking our chain.
Yeah, Roland, like, again, but we've also seen the way Roland, like, isn't calling Blaine he hasn't called him he. All the others have. He's like, it. And, just Roland is on a different mental level where he's just like, I'm not engaging with this thing. And it's just an interesting thing because I don't think that King even really calls it out, but it's something that we've seen over the course of a quarter of the book now. Roland just has a very different attitude about the whole thing, and I just find it interesting. Eddie sees that Roland is distant and knows that his mind is purely on the tower despite everything going on. So, Eddie obviously being a wise ass here. But what do you think do you think he suspects that Blaine is controlling the drums with this question? Because he's the one that ultimately identified that the drums were just a ZZ Top thing. So the fact that he's asking it here, is he just asking it as kind of like a tongue-in-cheek jab at Blaine? Where it's just
we know what you fucking did.
Yeah, he's like, I know it was you type thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just I think he's that's how I interpret it, so I'm assuming that's what he's doing. But he never, like, it doesn't say that he says it with like a weird side mouth, like, like, he just says, oh, you got any ZZ Top. So he seems very on the level, but it's Eddie, so I don't know.
It is Eddie. Yeah, right.
Roland diving way back to the last subchapter and asking why he is going to kill himself. It was so easy it is so easy just to accept Blaine as sentient, but Roland doesn't do that. So for him, I think the idea of a machine killing itself is pretty absurd, and maybe he's right. Yeah. Like, again, just the way he's treating Blaine is totally different, where he's just like, why would you kill yourself? Like, again, because I think he's looking at it like this is just a fucking goddamn computer. So it's just, I don't think Roland credits it the same way we would. Or
exactly.
The quartet, the rest of the quartet is treating Blaine a lot differently. So what do you got?
Yeah, and it's the kind of question that keeps you up at night. If we're ever to make AI smart enough to think that Blaine, to think like Blaine, do we have to worry about it going crazy and killing itself and maybe taking some of us with it?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Mark also says, didn't Charlotte go mad as well?
Yeah.
Exactly. So bookending it there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a beginning and ending.
Except with Shardik, it was a little bit more clear what was going on, right? There was like bugs getting in the system, like literal, like physical maggots and bugs and stuff, and like, but like I just feel like it's a little bit more. Not that it was fully defined, but it's a little bit more defined. Whereas like Blaine's here saying like, I run diagnostics, I can't figure out what it is, but I know I'm going mad. So
also, Blaine is an AI. He's artificial intelligence. Shardik was a cyborg, so it's an artificial intelligence with meat. I can't think of a better way, like flesh and stuff like that.
And
the flesh had become contaminated, which then contaminated the AI.
Yeah,
because it couldn't compute, kind of thing. So it's like a cause and effect there. But Blaine here doesn't have that. He's just mad.
Yeah. And as to what Ryan said as well, may have already killed, kind of quote unquote, himself once before in another body.
For all we know, yeah.
So it's very, very strange. And then Carol is shouting out hi to everyone and says, glad y'all came to the Palaver. Indeed, we've got a good crowd here.
Yeah.
So welcome everyone. And feel free to chime in at any point. I know we're kind of hitting through our notes here, but we definitely want you guys part of the conversation as well.
Yeah.
So going on here,
a couple more notes.
You
got two and I got one.
Oh, okay. So cool little timeline of Blaine slipping to madness here.
Yeah,
kind of gives us some. Yeah, but then again, I don't know because like, he's like, serving people blood for this period of time, and then after like the fall for a little bit longer, then I got bored with it, and then David Quick. It's kind of interesting. Gives you a little bit
because we found out David Quick came a while ago.
Yeah,
that was TikTok's grandfather, right?
Yeah, the mummy and the plane.
The plane, right?
Yeah. Also, the mention of the tower has kind of moved Roland mentally out of this train car. Like, I just don't think Roland is fully paying attention here. So that's but hey, it's his driving force, right? Is the Dark Tower?
That's what he's said, not just King.
It's kind of like the Captain America thing with Bucky, right? In was it Infinity War when he used it against himself? It's like Bucky is alive, and it causes him to just completely like that's Dark Tower for Roland. Like that's you throw something like that provocatively where it's like, oh, this is played at the like one of the top levels of the tower. Like Roland's gonna be like, oh wait, what? Like, because not only are you referring to the tower, but you're seemingly have knowledge to some elements inside the tower, right? So very interesting.
Yeah, and of course it's Eddie, the one that notices the change in Roland. Jake doesn't pick up on it. Susanna doesn't pick up on it. It's Eddie. It's like Eddie can read Roland better than any of the other members of the quartet.
Well, he's known him longer.
It's true.
I mean, yeah, Jake met him first, but then Jake did take a whole time off there as he got killed and then had to get brought back.
He took a vacation.
Yeah, he took a little Roland vacation.
Yeah.
So going on here, Blaine says that he never stopped serving the people of Lud, and that he even served them by releasing the gas. Susanna says that he is insane if he thinks that. Blaine agrees, but says he is not crazy, and then he goes into a hysterical laughing fit. So he's insane but not crazy is his rationale there.
Yeah.
That sounds like something the Joker would say.
Yes. Yes, it is.
So he says they forgot the voice of the mono was the voice of the computers, and not long after that they forgot that he was a servant and began thinking of him as a god. And since he was built to serve, he fulfilled that role for them, a god serving both punishment and favor on a whim or a random access memory. Which I have to pause as a nerd and just say random access memory, calling out RAM in 1991. That's an interesting call there. I don't know if King was on the cutting edge of technology, but that's a cool reference.
Had computers for a little bit, but like home computers.
Well, I mean, yeah, random access memory would have been a thing, but I'm wondering if King actually knew that, or if like some expert at the time gave him that phrase to use, because Windows 95 was like one of the biggest proliferations of computers to your average people,
and this is 4 years
and
before
this is
that.
Before that. So yeah, I don't know. But it's a cool, as a nerd, I loved seeing that. Then he says that last month Patricia committed suicide, which, as a quick pause, we know that's far from the truth, because the people of River Crossing told us, what was it, a decade or so before?
Well, yeah, something like that.
It's been a while, if not multiple decades. Susanna thinks to herself that he is senile or has lost grasp of the passage of time, which that's another interesting thing. And that throws into doubt everything he just said timeline-wise, right? It was like a month ago, Patricia killed herself, so now everything he said about the timeline could be completely fucked. But then again, we do know that time is strange in this world. So.
It is, yeah.
But if there's one thing that should be able to keep time, it should be a fucking computer.
Right?
That is one thing computers should be able
so.
to do.
But doesn't Jake's watch not work, and it's just a little mini computer?
It's true, but I mean, yeah, for sure. Let's see. It says he says he was planning on following her until the quartet showed up. Eddie repeats a little of this in a let me get this straight kind of way, but minimizes him as a train, and Blaine cuts him off, saying he is more than a train, and the real Blaine is hundreds of miles behind them in Lud. Jake remembers the rod they saw on the front of the train, an antenna, and thinks if they could break it somehow. So again, another thing adding to the Shardik mimicry.
Radar dish.
You got the radar dish on the front. You got the little pole in the front. That would be an antenna. So my notes here. I love Susanna being the ballsy one to call Blaine out for his ludicrous statement about serving the people by killing them. Because I think in general, Susanna is, because of her background, is a little bit more prim and proper, and more polite. So for her to be the one to call out, you're insane. Like that just
I'm gonna call bullshit.
Yeah, that's like it's more shocking coming from her, but she's right. But it's just like, God damn, she's the one that said that.
Oh, that was her.
Like
it's like that line from The Simpsons. Bart, no.
Yeah,
I'm right here, Mom. Oh, sorry,
Force
Lisa, no.
Yeah.
That we kind of expect that from like Eddie or maybe even Jake.
Even Jake.
Jake just did it in the last subchapter. He called him out.
Yeah.
But I wanted to comment. I said we have heard this shit before from evil people. The killing people, I'm serving them by killing them.
Yeah.
I was freeing prostitutes from their horrible lives, said the serial killer. Or, this race is having a hard time, so we just wiped them off the face of the planet, said the genocidal maniac leader guy. We've heard that kind of shit before in our history. So King's kind of taking that and putting this into the train. Oh, I was just serving the people. I was just doing what I was needed of me.
Yeah.
By murdering them. Like, wait, what?
But I will say, my note here, I do see where Blaine is coming from here, because so often AI has a monkey paw effect, right? So you tell the AI to bring peace on Earth, and it does this by killing every human being, because humans are the ones that stop peace. So it's just like all throughout history, we see these things where like computers and AI will like fulfill a wish, but there's a monkey paw element to it where it like perverts it. And it's the same thing here.
Yep.
Like ultimately, yes, if his edict, if he doesn't have like the Asimov laws of robotics,
Is that what it's called? Is
Yeah.
Asimov? Okay, I couldn't remember what it's called.
So the Asimov, if he doesn't have those, and it says to serve these people, and it gets to a point where legitimately, like the way to serve them is to be a vengeful, potentially random god, like that. Again, that's the.
I mean, I'll do what they need me to do.
Yeah, that's the exact monkey paw perversion that I think we see throughout literature and and even like television and movies when it comes to artificial intelligence.
I was gonna say, didn't Skynet do that in the Terminator series at one point where that's why it became self-aware? It's like, oh, I need to protect humans. Well, the first thing I need to do is kill all of them
And
because
enslave them.
Yeah, that's the only way that they can be protected is if I'm in control.
Yeah, exactly. I remember thinking the antenna was certainly going to be have an answer to be the answer to all this. I just remember when that got revealed. I don't think I made the connection to Shardik, but I was just like, okay, cool, because we're stuck on this train, like whatever. But then when like this all gets called out, I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, clock that, because that's probably going to be our resolution here.
There it is.
I remember that being my thought the first
Chekhov's
time
gun.
through. Yeah, I'm like, exactly. Chekhov's gun there. Now it's just going to be a matter of like opening a door and then like Jake or Roland like dangling out and then shooting the goddamn antenna, because then you would sever him from the actual brain
And
in
they
the
would
city,
just have a train.
and it would just be a train that what.
Yeah.
So I just remember playing that out in my head when that got revealed, because I was like, ooh, an antenna.
Carol says in the chat, AI, super topical right now.
Yeah, indeed. So then going on, Eddie then asks if he intends to kill himself no matter where the real Blaine is. And I don't think that's like necessarily written as clear, because I think ultimately what he's asking is like, so wait, if Blaine is in the computer way back there, like killing the train, is that really killing Blaine?
Yeah.
So I think Eddie's kind of calling him on his bullshit a little bit. I just don't think it's as written as clearly as like, in my mind, that's how I interpret it, where it's like, wait, so if Blaine, because he just told Eddie, I'm not just a train, I'm hundreds of miles back.
He's all offended
And then
about it.
and then Eddie's sitting here going, so you're killing yourself? Like, because
Destroying the train destroys those computers? Like, wait, what?
yeah, exactly. So it's
Yeah.
like, are you gonna detonate something to blow up all your computers and completely cease to exist, or is this all just bullshit?
Well, he says it earlier in a book club back, or two, maybe even two. The reason why he did like the toxin gas instead of like just a bomb,
Yeah,
is because he would destroy his computer banks.
Yeah, exactly. So Blaine doesn't answer. Naturally, it's becoming a theme here. Susanna asks if he was awake when they found him. He confirms that he was. He was running the god drums for the Greys.
So we got the proof that he was running the god drums.
Yeah, and when it says for the Greys, so I think the Greys thought they had a button that would like start them, but 100% that was a fake button, right?
He was just watching and he goes, "Oh, they pushed the button again."
They pushed the button, and like at any point he could have won like, nah, I'm not going to do it, and they would have just interpreted like, oh, the button's not working or something,
Yeah.
right? But ultimately it's Blaine that's making these calls. It's like the pretend steering wheel you give kids in a car so they think they're driving.
Give them a controller, just don't plug it in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's probably the more classic one nowadays. Yeah, you give them an unplugged controller or one without batteries.
Unsynced controller.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of these kids are going to be like, plugged?
Yeah,
Controllers don't plug in. What are you talking about, Peter?
yeah. But that is all. He was dozing, not fully asleep, is what he says. He asks them why not take them to the end of the line and then go back to sleep. Jake says because he's a pain, and I just love that. Jake just seems like a one note instrument here. He just keeps playing the same note over.
I literally wrote a note about that. I said, I love that Jake just keeps saying that he's a pain.
You know what
We both called it out. Yeah.
You know what I picture here? Oh, brother, art thou? Damn, we're in a tight spot. And he just keeps saying it in that scene over
We
and
got to
over.
find a way to escape. Damn, we're in a tight spot. Oh man, they're out back too. Damn, we're in a tight spot.
I picture that.
Saying it over.
I just picture that with Jake. Blaine is a pain. Blaine is a pain. He just keeps saying it over and over. Blaine says because there are dreams, and at that exact same time and he says that at the same time that Jake says what he says, or what Jake says his piece. So basically, at the exact same time. Eddie asks why he didn't end it when Patricia did, and if they were both part of the same computer, why didn't they do it together? Blaine said Patricia went mad, but saying it as if he didn't just admit it the same thing about himself a few minutes ago. So it's kind of weird. He has this detached where he's like, oh, she went mad. And
But didn't you just say that you went mad as well?
yeah, or you're going mad.
Yeah.
Right. So he says,
And it's not fixable either.
yeah, and he can't fix it. He says her issue was hardware as well as spiritual malaise. He says that shouldn't be possible, but the world has moved on, and asks Roland if he agrees. And he does, as well as adds that there is a deep sickness in the Dark Tower, which is at the heart of everything, and it is spreading, and the wastelands are further proof of that. And so that's Roland's answer, because Blaine, whatever. So at least he drew a little bit more out of Roland there to get somewhat of an explanation. Although, is this an explanation or Roland's theory?
Yeah.
Right. So Blaine says he can't confirm that. His monitoring equipment at Endworld, where the Dark Tower stands, has been down for 800 years. And he can't tell the difference at this point between fact and superstition in this regard. So that's an interesting
Oh, yeah.
There. So good question by Eddie here. Crashing the train and killing them is not killing himself unless he self-destructs all the computers as well.
Like we talked about, yeah.
Kind of a cool catch for Eddie where he's just like, wait, you just told me you're way back there. So what the fuck is accomplishing anything by crashing this train and killing us? So yeah. And then you mentioned Jake.
Yeah, just keep saying he's a pain.
Damn, we're in a tight spot.
Yeah.
I hope maybe Flanagan can even play that somewhat comedically, where that's Jake just keeps saying that
because he's a pain.
He was on my note here, he was running the God drums for the Greys, so they may have pushed a button, but it was ultimately Blaine choosing to play them or not.
Yeah.
I think that adds a further level of villainy to him because he knows what's going on, right?
Yeah,
he knows what happens,
but he's doing the AI thing. He's fulfilling their need.
Yeah, but he knows what happens every time those drums play. So it's not like he's like, oh my God, what? They're all killing them. It's like, no, he's got sensors and shit all over that goddamn city. If not, I mean, he's got sensors at some point up near the Dark Tower. So
they're using his electricity to kill him. The only place in the entire...
Well, there was the ones that were hanging people and stuff, too.
Well, they hung them, and they were electrified. Because they smell the burnt flesh. And then the one comes around the corner.
So, ultimately, the question I would have is, how much does Blaine actually sense here? If he had sensors at the Dark Tower, like, does he have sensors that maybe saw them on the beach? Does he have, like, I feel like up to this point, I've always just kind of assumed Ludd. But like now I'm starting to wonder if at some point, because I kind of assume that if there's like a linear scale, we're still way closer to the beginning of the end than the end.
Yep.
Like in terms of like, I'd say in my brain, not knowing anything, the first time reading this, I assume we're still like a 30%. 40, maybe 40%.
If that.
So we're still a ways away from the Dark Tower. So if he's had sensors and they fell because they're so far away, are the closer ones like Tull? Did he have sensors? Like it just.
I actually had a note about that in the next section that you cover.
Oh, okay, because that just barely hit me. Where it's like, wait a minute, how much does fucking Blaine know here? He's not just a Ludd creature now.
You're getting that oh God moment that I had earlier today doing this homework.
Yeah. So then my next note, a computer dreaming, that is creepy, especially because the dreams are motivating factor in his suicide. Again, we just don't credit machines for, we don't really, in our world, don't credit machines for thinking.
Yeah.
But the next level is if they can think, then if they start having dreams, that's basically, that's a whole level of fucking terrifying to me.
Yeah.
So what do you got?
So he had equipment to monitor the Dark Tower. This is actually something crazy to think about. Up until this point, 3 books, we've had 0 evidence of the tower. Evidence, not what Roland says or the beams or Shardik or anything like that. Maybe that stuff can be explained by other stuff.
Yeah.
None of that is hard evidence.
Those are circumstantial.
Exactly.
Circumstantial evidence.
We have no hard evidence. Here we have a witness who had measuring equipment on location in a place called Endworld where the Dark Tower is located. Blaine having equipment there is hard proof. This tower not only exists, but Blaine, up until 800 years ago, used to be able to monitor it.
Yeah.
Which means that there is some kind of civilization along the path all the way to the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Now, we've had 800 years since his equipment stopped working.
Well,
so we don't...
allegedly, too.
Allegedly.
Because his time perception
His time perception is off. He also is a big fat liar.
Yeah. Yes.
His pants, if he had them, would be on fire. And so... But I this struck me this time. I've never caught this before. And that's one of the reasons why
I haven't either.
Dude, that's the first hard evidence we have of the Dark Tower.
Yeah.
Right here in Book 3, at this moment, this is our first hard evidence that the Dark Tower does exist. It's not a story that Roland came up with, and he's just chasing his tail and everything like that.
Yeah.
Everything else, like you said, I love the way you said it, circumstantial evidence. Here, hard proof. The witness might be insane, might be a pathological liar, and might not be trusted. It is also suicidal and homicidal and everything like that. He also just commit mass murder.
Yeah. And he does John Wayne impressions.
Which, again, can't trust him. You already established that.
Can't trust
But this is our first time having hard proof there is a Dark Tower and there is a way to get to it.
Yeah.
So that, I just had to notate that. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
for
oh,
sure.
I'm like, oh, shit.
Yeah. And again, how much knowledge he has of the rest of it. Like, again, he could have been tracking
Right.
Roland and them for a long time
And that's
now.
like I said, I have this in go through your
Yeah,
note in the
it's-
next subsection, the little section, and I'm going to talk about that.
Yeah. My next note, does Roland know here, or is he throwing suspicion out in hopes that Blaine will confirm what he's saying?
Yeah.
Right? Because, again,
Yeah.
how much does Roland really know? Like, is this kind of like a... or more of like a faith belief thing where his belief is the world moved on because something's sick with the tower. Is this something that was passed on to him by his fathers? Like, we don't know necessarily, but I kind of wonder if Roland's fishing here for like a maybe a confirmation, because that would be like, if Blaine's like, oh yes, you're exactly right. I think Roland wouldn't have been like, okay, cool, like whatever. I think there almost would have been some internal excitement for Roland, where it's like, oh shit, yes, confirmed. You know, I don't know. There's
See,
nothing. There's nothing
like-
hard in the text, but I kind of get a sense that Roland was fishing there. He was trying to get
he
more
was-
information.
See, and that's again back to my point. Is like Roland's fishing for stuff and everything like that. It's like Roland's never been there. He said that he's never been to the Dark Tower. He needs to get there.
Yeah.
So for us, it's kind of like one of those moments where it's like you find out the whole thing is not real.
Yeah.
We've seen that in stories before. So to have that hard proof, and I guess Roland maybe kind of missed it here. Blaine had monitoring equipment there?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Well, how did it get there? People had to have put it there, right?
Yeah.
You know? So it's just it's a crazy moment. It really blew my mind when I caught that this morning. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh shit.
Yeah. So going on, it says something Blaine says here reminds Eddie of something Roland had said before, but he can't remember what it was. But he remembers Roland being irritated, which I think
If it's Eddie, that's
for Eddie, that's probably most things.
par for the course.
Yeah, exactly. Blaine says Patricia was sobbing constantly, and Blaine found this rude and unpleasant. He thinks that she was lonely as well as mad. He then breaks down some of the specifics of it, of what killed her, and that what killed her could have spread to him, but he stopped it because he had heard rumors of a gunslinger still in the world. So ultimately there was a thing that could have spread to him, and he almost probably would have let it, because again, he's kind of whatever too. But then he heard rumors of a gunslinger still in the world. He stopped it from happening, kind of isolated himself from her. Roland asks what rumors he heard and who he heard it from. Very good questions there. Blaine didn't answer.
Of course.
Blaine says he got so disturbed by her blatting that he erased her circuits controlling her non-voluntaries, and she responded by throwing herself off the bridge. Susanna is filled with rage, empathizing with Patricia, and that Blaine is making light of it all. She thinks that if Blaine were a person and not a bunch of circuits hundreds of miles behind them, she would give him some marks on his face to remember Patricia by.
Ooh. Ooh. Again, we talked about Susanna not being the most like
Is that Susanna?
confrontational. Is that Detta? Is that what you're thinking? Is
feels,
that Detta?
That feels very Detta there.
You got a point.
Yeah, that feels. And again, I know they're all merged now, but I just think there's elements when Detta bubbles to the surface a little bit more, and I think that feels very Detta-ish to me.
Yeah.
And I don't say that as a bad thing, because I adore Detta. I want to see more of her in this series here. Let's bring on more Detta, right? Right, sir.
No.
Yes.
No.
I love Detta. Hey, first time reading it when they merged together, I thought the whole story we'd have to worry about her flipping back and forth. Still.
It's like one or the other. Good morning.
Yeah.
Honky muffa. It's like, oh man, it's gonna be a bad day.
Got like a garbage can lid and like a stick and they're poking her. Wake up.
Wake up.
Figure out which one she is.
Did she wake up on the right side of the bed or the wrong side of the bed?
Yeah. Eddie gets a tremor in memory. This always perks my ears, because if they don't immediately remember, I often feel it's probably important and that will pay off for something big, right?
Yeah.
Because if it was just something minor, it would have filled in the gaps there. And it's the same thing in TV shows too, where it's like, wait, I remembered something, and then it cuts off. You know that's a big thing. Where if it's like, oh, I remembered something, that person said this, it's just a minor thing.
Yep.
And same thing here. So
it's always the thing they do in TV shows where it's like 3 seasons later, it's like, and it's like takes you back to season 1. It's like, oh, and it makes that you're like, oh right, that's a big thing. That's what Eddie's doing.
Yeah.
Right
So
here.
the fact that Eddie can't remember it immediately, it made me like kind of mark it in my mind where I'm like, hey, something's important is there.
What is that?
Because King didn't just reveal the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because if he would have revealed the whole thing, it would have just been a small thing. It's, it reminded Eddie that one time around the fire and Roland said this thing, and it's like, okay,
he was
cool.
irritated with me.
Yeah, it's cool, whatever. But the fact that it does it, I'm like, all right, King, I'm watching. I'll probably forget in a second, but I'm watching you.
Yeah, King's great at making us forget.
Yes, indeed. So my next note here, Blaine heard rumors of Roland. That is very, very interesting.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about. Is that I had a note about it. How does he know? Listening through the pubes and grays, like the listening equipment in Lud. But we just found out that he has monitoring equipment all the way to the Dark Tower. So does he have monitoring equipment throughout the world?
Yeah.
Throughout the worlds, plural, because we're establishing in this book club, this is an Earth.
Yeah.
This isn't our Earth, anyways.
Yeah.
It's still called Earth, mid-world. I think Blaine references it. I noticed it today. Blaine references it to as Earth at one point. But it was Earth not capitalized.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting kind of thing.
Yeah, so not a proper noun.
Not
then.
a proper noun, not the planet Earth, but Earth. But wait, so how does he know? And that's what you were talking about just a little bit ago. Wait, so was he watching him in Tull or on the beach or in the desert or up on the mountains?
All the way back to Brown.
He watched
Zoltan.
He watched Jake fall.
Imagine if he called out Zoltan.
Yeah.
Imagine Blaine if he called him out. That would make it even more creepy. It's like, oh, Zoltan, he was a good little bird.
Yeah, you want some? If you would like, Roland, I could make you some beans, the magical fruit.
Yeah, that would be
no.
That'd be even more tight. But no, but ultimately it's there. It's way more subtle than that. But it is. Yeah, he's got some. Maybe the rumors he's talking about is him actually reading some stuff, sensing some stuff from the distance.
Yeah.
So my last note here. Love the dead alike anger from Susanna here over Blaine being so blithe about Patricia's issues and eventual death. Because again, I'm just like, yeah, good on you, man. I wish Blaine were a person so I could see freaking Susanna make some marks on his face. So moving on to the next part of this section here, Blaine asks for a riddle. Eddie says not yet. Blaine has not answered his original question. Eddie says that he is fine with Blaine killing himself, but why would he kill the Tet as well? Little Blaine shows back up and says because he wants to. So that's a fun little thing.
Blaine is a pain.
Yeah, to have that little voice just chime in every once in a while. Blaine speaks and says the same thing and says it's the only reason he needs to have. So, yeah, now he's getting even more mustache twirly here. He then says he wants riddles and he wants them now. And if they refuse him, he will not wait until Topeka, but he will derail them right here and now. The Tet all look at Roland, who is seated with his hands folded in his lap. Roland says, "Fuck you." And does not raise his voice and is very matter of fact. There is a sharp, horrified gasp from Little Blaine, which I love. And again, Mark Hamill would do so good as both characters.
Oh, he could pull off Little Blaine too, yeah.
Exactly. Blaine bellows, "What did you say?" But the voice has such disbelief that it almost sounds like Little Blaine.
Wait a minute.
That's an interesting. So he's basically shocked Blaine to the point where he isn't like angry or malicious. He's like,
is that what Blaine sounded like before he went mad? That kind of thing. That question. Because I know we were talking about maybe Patricia is Little Blaine and Blaine took over her body, air quotes on body here. But what if it is just Blaine went mad and created a new personality for himself, and Little Blaine is what was left over of regular Blaine before the madness?
Yeah.
That's another thought,
Yeah, for sure. Roland then calmly says, "I said fuck you, but if that puzzles you, Blaine, I can make it more clear. No. The answer is no."
Yeah.
And that is the end of the subchapter. So, can we all just say that we were probably all as shocked as Little Blaine there reading this?
Wait, what?
Just... Like,
yeah.
So my notes here, Eddie asking the real questions here. Why hurt them? But the answer is the sinister because I want to. Again, Blaine's villainy is growing by the moment. He is just getting more evil at every turn here. I mean, I think that, again, not like we didn't have a whole book worth of prepping us for this evil train.
Right.
But his
it's not like Jake hasn't been telling us since his very first appearance in this book.
Pretty much. But ultimately, evil's evil, but like there's levels of evil, and this train is getting more evil by the second. So,
and that's literally what my note is that this is one of those moments where you really know a character is evil, not some master plan or special reason, revenge or profit or anything like that, just because. Like the Strangers. Do you remember that horror movie?
Yeah, with Liv Tyler.
Liv Tyler's like got people showing up and just harassing this couple.
Yeah.
At this house, they start like harassing them, trying to kill them and stuff like that. When they finally get a confrontation, they ask them why. They say because you were home.
Yeah. I mean, that's why the original Halloween is so effective, because really there's a randomness to that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
And that's why some those and strangers, I always refer to that in the same way. It's like, dude, horror is so much more scary when there's no explanation.
Yeah.
There's no motive.
I called it a Manson level evil.
Yeah.
They would just randomly do shit. You know, they called it creepy crawling, where they would and this is one of the most terrifying things about the Manson family. Before the murders, Manson would send out the girls to creepy crawl people's houses. They'd break into houses when they were home. And this is the 60s. People wouldn't lock their doors a lot of times. They'd go into the house and they'd move things. They'd take shit.
You always see those things online where it's like, hey, if you were going to break in someone's house and like move something to mess with them, it's like every time I see those posts, I'm like, Manson family.
Yeah, that's a former Manson family member right there or something. Like that is next level evil shit to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And to not have a reason for doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays I'm going to record it and I'm going to get the kicks when the person realizes it, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a reason. They did it just cause.
Yeah,
And that's what Blaine's doing here is why not?
Yeah.
I don't need a reason because I want to, fucker.
Very Jokerish too. Once again.
Joker, why are you doing this? It sounded fun.
Yeah, it sounded like a good idea at the time.
Ugh.
Carol says AI will go out of control and know things we never meant for them to know, and do things we never meant for them to do. That is why Blaine is a pain.
Yeah,
I think we had warning as a society for years. I mean, dating back to even Terminator in the early 80s.
Yep.
Like we all know that AI is something we should not be meddling with.
No.
And then Carol says Roland cussing is the best thing in the world. Yeah, it's pretty great.
We're gonna get some more of it.
Next, Blaine threatened derailment right now. Makes the threat of death that much more real. I think I had the idea that his suicide was just hitting the termination point. I think all of us have seen the end of a train track. You've got just that concrete pillar thing that like
sometimes you got like those two little things that the
like impact
can hit.
Yeah.
Like if it's going a little bit fast, it hits those and everything.
Yeah.
But a lot of times there's this big concrete structure that it's supposed to hit and stop.
Yeah. Kind of like when a big truck backs up at a place, you got like those padded things for
exactly.
It to, yeah. So I think we've all seen those. So I think that my idea that I had up till this point is that he's just going to go fucking full speed into that and kill them all. And then if he went full speed, that would do the job. It'd kill him. It'd kill them. But that kept the threat distant, and we've got some time before that can be paid off. But now he's saying that he could derail them right now. That changes everything.
Becomes instant, yeah.
Because now he could kill them. I mean, I could imagine if he wanted, he could probably electrocute them. It just wouldn't kill himself as well. But if he
honestly, wouldn't it be surprising if he was able to suck the oxygen out of the room and they just suffocate?
Oh yeah, he could. But I think that the suicide and killing them is I think that's what gave me the comfort of like, okay, well that's at the end, so we've at least got some time to like talk him out of it or hit that antenna and stop him or whatever. But that's gone now. Yeah, he could derail them at this moment over the wastelands. Like, yeah, that's not good. That is not good. What do you got here?
And so this is my note that we were talking about earlier, where I notated the speed again. Also, the speed in which they travel is much faster than any train on Earth. When you were talking about them having the impact at the end, we've covered this previously. Blaine is going over 800 miles per hour. The fastest train on Earth is only 286 miles per hour. While we were talking about it before, passenger airliners travel between 500 and 600 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So it is still faster than a plane flying.
Yeah.
This train,
and on the ground they're like 300-400 miles an hour for takeoff. Like that's where they are around the speed they have to hit to take off for a passenger
and then they
liner.
accelerate as they get up into the higher altitudes where the air is thinner and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this is a train going 800 miles per hour, and he plans on just crashing at the end and dying.
Yeah.
And taking them with him.
Yeah.
So that gives us an idea of how bad this wreck at the end is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So my last note, Roland here. What else can I say? Roland motherfucking Deshane.
Yeah, right?
As we're about to see the Mad Dog of Gilead here.
Yep, let's go. This is a
jumping into subchapter 10.
This is a lengthy subchapter, so we're going to kind of not rush, but we're going to try and go like Blaine, fast.
Yeah.
So there's no response from either Blaine, Big or Little, for a long time. When Big Blaine did respond, he didn't say anything. Instead, the walls, floor, and ceiling began to lose their color and solidity. Again, within 10 seconds, the Barony coach was gone. They were now flying through the mountain range they had seen before. They could see giant beetles that looked like landlocked turtles crawling around slowly. Roland saw something that looked like a giant snake uncoil from the mouth of a cave and grab one of these beetles and dragged it back into its cave. Roland had never seen life such as these creatures or even the countryside. It was entirely alien. Blaine could have transported them to another world.
Yeah.
I don't think I breathed when reading the start of the subchapter the first time through. Because after what Roland said, I think this part here where they're talking about like the beetles and the snake and everything like that, I don't think I took a breath. I think it was like, oh, I forgot it. I forgot to breathe for a second because Roland's like, cussing out Blaine and everything.
Yeah.
And then what do you got?
Let's see. For some reason, my thing is not reactive all of a sudden, my Google Chrome. But I could see this note. I said it earlier. I had a bit of a hard time truly imagining what Blaine was showing them, but I don't have that issue here. I could see this, and it's terrifying.
You had snakes as a kid, right?
Oh yeah.
So you know what it's like when they uncoil and eat and stuff like that. So you could probably see that.
Yeah.
Okay. Classic King having something happen and ignoring it at the start of the next subchapter builds tension so well. We've talked about it several times throughout this book club. And then I'm going on into the next section.
I am still okay. Maybe I'm back up here. Let's. Sorry.
You're good.
I don't know. I've never had this happen before.
Your mouse is just not responding?
No, like the Google Chrome stopped. Like I couldn't. Like I could. My mouse is moving everything, but it wouldn't like respond. I think we're still live and everything, so we should be all right. Okay. So sorry. Where were we? We're
good. So
there we go. All right. I think I'm caught back up.
Cool. Blaine says perhaps you should derail them right there. Again, the threat that is existent now.
Yeah.
Perhaps you should, the gunslinger says indifferently. Roland didn't feel indifferent. He knew that Blaine might read his feelings in his voice. Blaine said he could do that, but Roland was sure it could lie as well. Something we talked about with him being a liar and everything. And Blaine is an incredibly sophisticated machine, but still a machine. He may not be able to understand that humans can go through with actions even if their emotions rise up against it. But if Blaine did read his feelings through his voice, the game would be up, because Blaine would sense fear in the gunslinger's voice. Let's pause for a second. Roland scared? Oh, shit.
Yeah, because ultimately, you got to be careful. It's like we've seen that in sci-fi and stuff where like robots can like see your pulse, they can see your eyes dilate and stuff. So it's like
you are lying.
You're going to have a lot harder time lying to a machine. So I think and it is also interesting that Roland knows that. So it's like, what else has Roland come across that's artificial
that's
intelligence?
Like this,
that has that kind of ability.
But because Blaine can sense fear in the gunslinger's voice and think that he's bluffing, such a mistake could get them all killed. Blaine says that Roland is rude and arrogant, and they may seem like interesting traits to Roland, but they are not to Blaine. Eddie's face was frantic. He mouthed at Roland, "What are you doing?" Roland ignores him. He had his hands full with Blaine, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He says he can be much ruder than he has been. So, pretty good look at how Roland is master of his emotions, able to bluff despite being afraid. That is a very hard thing to do. Like, we're not talking about, oh, I'm scared.
Well, remember, he could, like, remember, like, all the control he had over his body with the Data stuff? Like, he could, like, basically...
Make it look like he was asleep.
Completely, like, drop his body to the point where it was, like, it was in deep sleep. And I don't think he was just, like, mimicking it, like, all, like, fake snoring like a kid would do. Like,
no.
He was, like, controlling his body and, like...
Because Data could tell.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, Roland, he has some, like, super crazy control over his body.
Yeah.
So, interesting stuff.
Yes.
I'm with Eddie here. The first time reading it, Roland, what the ever-living fuck are you doing?
Yep. And my note is what I kind of already said. If Roland's scared, so am I.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Is like Eddie being scared, okay. Susanna being scared, okay. Jake being scared.
He's a kid.
He's a kid. Oi, bumbler.
He's a small little creature. What does he know?
Don't you.
How am I wrong there? He is a small little creature.
Yeah, but I know sometimes you say mean things about Oi for no reason.
Oi.
Good boy. So this next part I actually took as a direct quote from the book, so I'm just going to read it word for word.
It's pretty great.
It's deserving.
Yes.
Roland of Gilead unfolded his hands and got slowly to his feet. He stood on what appeared to be nothing, legs apart, his right hand on his hip and his left hand on the saddlewood grip of his revolver. He stood as he had stood so many times before, in the dusty streets of 100 forgotten towns, in a score of rock-lined canyon killing zones, in unnumbered dark saloons with their smells of bitter beer and old fried meats. It was just another showdown in another empty street. That was all, and that was enough. It was Kef, Ka, and Katet. That the showdown always came was the central fact of his life and the axle upon which his own cob revolved. That the battle would be fought with words instead of bullets this time made no difference. It would be a battle to the death, just the same. The stench of killing in the air was as clear and defined as the stench of exploding carrion in a swamp. Then the battle rage descended, as it always did, and he was no longer really there to himself at all. Roland starts to insult Blaine, calls him a nonsensical, empty-headed, foolish, arrogant machine. I can call you a stupid, unwise creature who senses no more than the sound of a winter wind in a hollow tree. Blaine tells him to stop. Roland went on in the same serene tone, ignoring Blaine completely. Unfortunately, I am somewhat restricted in my ability to be rude, since you are only a machine. What Eddie calls a gadget. And I have to stop here for a second because he calls him a gadget.
Yeah. And my note, a very dangerous thing to minimize an egotistical creature.
Uh-huh.
Very dangerous.
And then continuing the quote from the book.
One of my favorite parts here.
I this is from the book. I cannot call you a sucker of cocks, for instance, because you have no mouth and no cock. I cannot say that you are viler than the vilest beggar who ever crawled the gutters of the lowest street in creation, because even such a creature is better than you. You have no knees on which to crawl, and would not fall upon them even if you did, for you have no conception of such a human flaw as mercy. I cannot even say that you fucked your mother, because you had none. Roland paused for breath. His three companions were holding theirs. All around them, suffocating, was Blaine the Mono's thunderstruck silence. I can call you a faithless creature who let your only companion kill herself, a coward who has delighted in the torture of the foolish and the slaughter of the innocent, a lost and bleeding mechanical goblin who, I command you to stop, or I'll kill you all right here. Roland's eyes blazed with such wild blue fire that Eddie shrank away from him. Dimly he heard Jake and Susanna gasp. Kill if you will, but command me nothing, the gunslinger roared. You have forgotten the faces of those who made you. Now either kill us or be silent and listen to me, Roland of Gilead, son of Stephen, gunslinger and lord of the ancient lands. I have not come across all the miles in all the years to listen to your childish prating. Do you understand? Now you will listen to me. Okay, I got chills reading that. I've never read that out loud. Holy shit, dude. Woo, that was an experience to read that out loud. Oh, my God.
That is, I mean, I don't think it is much of a spoiler to say this is one of my favorite aspects of the entire series. So we're in the midst of it here.
Carol says in the chat, best line/moment. I stand by that. Robert says goosebumps. Good read, Peter. Hey, thank you. I tried this time. I'm not kidding, dude. I got like shivers down my spine. I got goosebumps. I've never read that out loud. That is, whoo, that's something else to read that, like out loud in front of people. Oh man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have my note here. It says one of my favorite moments in the entire series. Roland insulting Blaine, who's been such a jerk to everyone, especially my boy Oy and Jake. Like to get his comeuppance. Mwah.
Yeah,
I love it so much right here.
Yeah, and I know. Yeah, this portion is some of my favorite stuff. And I was also fist bumping the first time I read this. I may have been scared of how Blaine might respond, but Roland is being the badass that we have seen all throughout the series so far, but this time without guns.
Yeah, like you said, words instead of bullets. Like I love that.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah. To have it compared to all the times he stood up ready for battle is chilling.
Yeah, this whole section
thing
is masterful, man.
Yeah.
Not just the role and stuff, but all of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I will say, like, in terms of overall adaptation, this is probably like top 1 or 2 moments that I want to see. Like, absolute. Like, I don't even know if there's another moment in the entire series that I would want to see more than this.
This is going to be unreal if we ever see it.
Yeah, like
as great as the Gunslinger Creed was in the movie and everything. Nothing is going to come close to this.
No, this is
one of those moments that is going to be cinematic masterpiece if done right. And with Flanagan, Flanagan does it.
And the tension of how this scene being built. Yeah, I can't wait. Because it will happen.
Oh,
it's positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement.
It'll happen.
What is it? Flanagan's Tower series.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Can't wait. It's got to happen.
Exactly. At the command part, Roland scared Eddie so much that he shrank away. Have we ever seen Eddie really get like scared of anything? I mean, like he does like the cool calculating thing with
As an
Shardik.
adult. I don't know.
Right. Well,
Because
like,
the
we
Dutch
see
Hill
him,
Mansion.
we see him
yeah.
as no. I'm talking like Eddie that's introduced in the airplane to now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The only time, I mean, his fear at the Dutch Hill Mansion
That's a
was
flashback. You know, like
Yeah.
kid Eddie. I'm talking like Eddie on the plane, Eddie on the beach, Eddie on the forest, Eddie on the path of the beam. Even in like the drawing of Jake, does he ever like flinch or anything like that? He flinches from Roland here.
Yeah.
That just tells you how bad this is. Like the gravitas, the presence that Roland's
Yeah.
putting out and everything like that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, indeed.
And so, going on, there's a shocked silence after Roland's outburst. I like that it's called an outburst, by the way. No one breathed. Roland stared sternly forward, his head held high and hand resting on the butt of his gun. Susanna raised her hand to her mouth and felt a small smile there. Same way a woman who had a new hat might feel to make sure that it was still on straight. She was afraid this was the end of her life, but the feeling that dominated her heart was not fear, but pride. She glanced at Eddie and Jake and saw that Eddie was regarding Roland with an amazed grin. Jake's expression was even simpler. It was an adoration pure and simple. Jake says to tell him to tell Blaine, tells Roland to tell Blaine, and then walk it to him, right?
Yeah.
Eddie says to pay attention. They didn't call him the Mad Dog of Gilead for nothing. After a long moment, Blaine says, "Hey, is it true? Did they really call you that?" And Roland says, "Maybe." Standing on nothing but sterile, on nothing above the sterile foothills.
I'm not going to like look it up right now, but I really hope that like on the Dark Tower wiki that one of the like aliases for Roland is Mad Dog of Gilead. I really hope it is. If not,
suggest an edit.
If not, everyone involved that has ever edited that has forgotten the face of their father. Every single person. Every one of them. I have never submitted to a wiki before, but I would for that.
Hey, Alan, welcome. Glad you could
welcome,
join us.
Alan. Yeah. Right in the middle of some great stuff here.
I know. We just got past the verbal dressing down of Blaine by Roland. But seeing how excited they all are while recognizing they might die shows how committed they are to Roland. That's not the usual response to Eddie when Roland does something. I mean, we just saw Eddie.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
And then Roland gives his speech and everything like that. And look how Eddie flips.
Yeah.
Eddie, who
Yeah.
always seems
It's kind
to
of the
question.
general speech, right?
Yeah.
The general in the battlefield that gives that.
They're in the meeting before the battle. Are you sure, General? Are you sure? But then the general gets out in front of the men and he gives the speech, and that lieutenant who was questioning him is just like, "Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go," you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing. That's Eddie right here.
It's the Theoden.
Yeah.
In Return of the King.
Right.
Yeah, that whole thing. Is this the boldest that the Tet has seen Roland act? We know we have seen Roland do some stuff, but most of his more badass moments, I don't know if the Tet was really there. Like shit like Tull, trying to think of some of the other stuff that we've seen from him that was just absolutely fucking badass. Like I don't think they've experienced it like we as readers have. I think the Tet has not really, like
They've all experienced it individually, but never together as a group. Like we have Roland with Jake under the mountain. We have Roland with Eddie and the Leaning Tower in a firefight and stuff like that. But have we ever seen Roland just like go flat out?
And see, I think we have, but I don't think the quartet has. I think
Tull is the only time we've really seen it.
They've seen some like small, like they felt the heat of it, but like
This time they're in the
seeing
fire.
the full on fucking full glory of Roland's like what we've seen it a little bit, but I ultimately and also his trial. As a kid, but it's like this Tet has not seen any of that, so it's like this is probably them seeing it for the first time, like Roland in his full fucking badass glory. So it could add to like why they're reacting the way they are, because this feels different than what they've experienced up to this point.
Yep.
I don't think they've ever doubted Roland, but I think this is like holy shit, like there's something else here. So good stuff.
And then I love how the tension gets broken. It's I've witnessed this myself, and I'm sure you have too. A fight's happening, the stare down happens. One person says something to distract them, like, "Oh, hey, a bird just flew into that car over there," something, and they focus on that for a second instead of the fight,
and it breaks the
tension, and then it's back to discussion instead of fighting and stuff like that. I've literally seen this in my household with me and my daughter, or me and my wife, or my wife and my daughter. Like it literally is something, and then the cat does something.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, look at the cat.
Oh, look at the kitty.
And then it's, hey, listen, this is what I was trying to say. And it's a lot calmer after that tension's broken.
Yeah.
I love that King puts that in here because after the verbal dress down that Roland just did, first time reading through, I'm like, they're dead.
Yeah,
they're dead.
This was a good series.
This is a good series. It's over now.
Must be different characters the rest of the books or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So going on, Blaine asks what they are good for if they won't tell him riddles. He sounds like a grumbling, sulky child. And I put that directly from grumbling, sulky child.
That sounds about right.
Roland says he didn't say they wouldn't. Blaine says he doesn't understand. He says his voice print analysis indicates rational discourse and asks him to explain. You know what? I didn't take a note down of that, but there's proof that Roland was saying is that he can analyze your voice and shit like that. Oh, yeah. But apparently he didn't do it with Roland before. So,
or Roland is good enough with his bluff that Blaine couldn't read it.
Maybe that's even scarier thought that Roland could fake out
that's
a
why
computer?
That's why I mentioned the control he had earlier. I think he's controlling himself in a way that's beyond our comprehension.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, dude, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Okay. He says that Blaine's eagerness has made him unseemly. Blaine doesn't understand, and Roland says it's made him rude and asks if he understands that. After a long, thoughtful silence, Blaine apologizes. Roland accepts but says that there is a larger problem, and Blaine says to explain. Blaine sounded a little unsure of himself. Roland wasn't surprised. It had been a long time since the computer had experienced any human response other than ignorance, neglect, or superstitious subservience. It had been a long time since he had to deal with simple human courage.
Yeah.
Roland says to close the carriage, and he will explain. He sits down as if further argument and the prospect of immediate death is now unthinkable. Just, close the carriage. We'll talk about it. Again, the tension's broke. They can discuss it now, right?
Yeah.
Blaine did as he was asked, bringing back the walls. The route map shows the blinking dot is close to a dot marked Candleton. Candleton?
Yeah.
Roland says that rudeness is forgivable, so he was taught in his youth, but stupidity is not. Blaine asks how he has been stupid, and his voice reminds Susanna of a cat waiting outside of a mouse hole waiting to pounce.
And I could just hear that. I could just hear it. I really can.
How many times have you seen a video online where a couple's fighting? Whether it's a man or a woman, or a woman or a woman, a man and a man, two friends, whatever.
Or a parent and a kid.
Parent-child.
Yeah, because the parent just
Where were you? And then they're just waiting for that lie. Go ahead, lie to me, you motherfucker. I swear to God, I'm gonna Like,
exactly.
He's waiting right here. He's like, go ahead, Roland. Tell me. Go ahead. I'm waiting.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that's my line here, my note here. The standoff with Blaine and Roland here is still intense. Despite the tension being broken, this is still intense.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Just brilliant stuff. No spoiler to say, but the Dark Tower is mentioned as a or the Dark Tower is mentioned as a whole often. If somebody mentions it to me, for instance, this is probably the scene that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Like out of context, if someone's just like the Dark Tower series, and like word association, this is the scene I come to.
And you're like, Roland and Blaine.
Like, that's just this is kind of the, and I'm not gonna. I don't want this to sound like it doesn't get better, but I will say that like to me, this is one of the main events of the series.
Yep.
Like this is just like I said, if we were to like. If you were to ask me, hey, like the series of Flanagan's is greenlit, it's happening on Amazon, it starts next year. Like, what are you most excited for? I guarantee you this is number 1 or 2. Like, this is
right up there.
This is some of the best stuff, man.
Yeah, and one of the things also is like with Mark Hamill saying Blaine is the range of different emotions and stuff like that he's going to have to go through. My note here says it's interesting to see the range of Blaine's madness here. Just in the last section I have covered. So, just the last section I was giving like the summary for. He goes from a sulky child to predatory.
Yeah.
Susanna thinks of a cat waiting outside of a mouse hole to ambush it and stuff like that. She gets the sense from his voice.
Yeah.
How predatory he sounds. Just think about how hard that would be to swing that.
Oh yeah.
If you're reading something or you're voice acting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You're going to be on a pendulum going from you're batshit crazy to you're insane and make people think that they're going to die to being a sulky child. You're all over the map here if you're Blaine.
I don't want to like feel negative, but let's just say we can't have Chris Pratt voicing Blaine tomorrow.
Tad over here slandering Star-Lord and Mario.
I like him as Star-Lord. He's just not a voice actor, man. He's not a voice actor, and I don't think he would be able to pull off the range that we're talking about here. Like Mark Hamill certainly could.
Oh, okay. So we've got a little bit left here. Roland says they have something that he wants, but the only reward that Blaine is offering them is death. That is very stupid. After a long pause, Blaine says he will not reward them with their lives for bad riddles, and the quality of the riddles they have is not proven. Roland nods and says to listen to him. He explains about fair days and the riddle competition he already told the others about. Said how it was the most important day of the most important event of the fair of wide earth and full earth because the riddles would decide how well the crops would do. Blaine says he finds this superstitious and that is annoying and upsetting to him. Roland agrees that it is superstitious, but says, hey, you'd be surprised how often it did predict the crops. Then provided him with this riddle. What is this is a quote from the book. What is the difference between a grandmother and a granary? Granary? Granary?
Yeah.
I always say that word wrong. That is very old and not very interesting, Blaine said, but he sounded happy to have something to solve just the same. One is one's born kin, the other is one's corn bin, a riddle based on phonetic coincidence. Another of this type, one told on the level which contains the barony of New York, goes like this. What is the difference between a cat and a complex sentence? Jake spoke up. Our English teacher told us that one just this year. A cat has claws at the end of its paws, and a complex sentence has a pause at the end of its claws.
Boo.
You don't like it?
Boo.
What? It's a riddle. It's not a dad joke.
No, that's even worse. That's a teacher joke.
Oh. Those are the worst ones? Are those worse than dad jokes?
I mean, let's move on.
Okay. I've heard the cat one before, but this is the first time for the grandmother granary one. What about you?
I don't know if I had heard that one before either. It definitely is interesting, and it sounds like something that probably existed because it seems logical. My note here, Roland makes a good point here. He is demanding a riddle but offering only death. I remember this being, this is the point I figured that what the game would be. I guess this is solidifying, this is the point the first time reading, I'm like, okay, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be like a riddle contest for their lives.
Yeah.
But I remember being alarmed by how little the book was left as I was looking there.
I know,
like,
right?
What the fuck is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I had the next book sitting next to me on the table. I wasn't a real-time reader that had to go, God, when's he going to write the next one?
Yeah,
So,
exactly, because we've had gaps in between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So when are we going to get 4? But we still got a bit to go. Blaine says they're old, silly riddles, and Eddie says for once he agrees with them. Blaine says he would like to hear more of Faraday riddling, as he finds it quite interesting. Roland explains how between 16 and 30 riddlers would gather in the Hall of the Grandfathers. This is the only time of the year the hall was open to commoners. And on that day, they all crowded in. The gunslinger's eyes were far away and dreamy. It was an expression Jake had seen on his face when Roland told him how he and his friends, Jamie and Cuthbert, had snuck into the balcony of the same hall to watch some sort of dance. Roland had told him about this when they were climbing the mountain to chase Walter. Direct quote from the book here. Martin sat next to my mother and father, Roland had said. I knew them even from so high above, and once she and Martin danced slowly and revolving, and the others cleared the floor for them and clapped when it was over. But the gunslingers did not clap. Jake looked curiously at Roland, wondering again where the strange distant man had come from, and why. What an interesting question. Why?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm not going to dwell on that because that is a deep question to try and deal with right now.
Yeah.
I love the flashback stuff, even if it is a callback to a previous one.
Yeah. Oh.
Flashback. All of a sudden, I'm getting gunslinger vibes.
Oh, Inception.
Yeah.
It is a cool new addition to everything we've seen from the world that had not fully moved on yet. Any little element that gets brought in, it's new. I love. I enjoy. So.
Roland tells him how the riddle contest would work. A bunch of riddlers would put riddles in a barrel, but they had to be approved by 3 judges, one of the 3 always being a gunslinger, because it had to be fair. Blaine agrees that riddles must be fair. Roland goes on to explain that all the men and women competing would line up. Position was determined by a lot drawn, and they would draw a riddle if they would, and they would get a 3-minute time limit to solve it. Blaine asked if the same riddle was then asked to the next contestant, and Roland said yes. So if someone missed it, I forgot to put that. If someone missed it, the next contestant would be asked the riddle, and Roland said yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Blaine says they would have more time to think about it, and he thinks it sounds swell. Roland doesn't understand swell, and Susanna says he means it sounds like fun. Blaine asks what the prize is, and Roland tells him it's the biggest goose in the barony. and that his teacher Court always won. Blaine says that must have been a great riddler and wishes that he was there. Now, that makes two of us, Roland thinks. Roland then says they have come to his proposal. Blaine says he is listening with great interest. Love the world building. We get riddles. We get Court.
Also, I love the
like
addition to Court.
Yeah, right?
This is a huge addition because we've seen him ultimately be a physical teacher, fighting in combat, all that. But the fact that he was cunning mentally with riddles, it's an interesting wrinkle to his character. Like,
yeah, he's not just the gym teacher.
Like if it was Van A, that'd be a whole different thing. But the fact that
which
it's
is
Court,
his book learning teacher.
yeah, the fact that it's Court is just like, oh, that's interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Cool
yeah.
little wrinkle for him.
Roland says the next few hours is going to be their fair day, but they won't be riddled by Blaine, but they will riddle him instead.
Yeah.
Because he would stump them for sure, and he wants to hear their riddles. He says Blaine would probably stump Court. He doesn't know if it's true, and this is a direct quote from the book, but the time to use the fist had passed, and the time for the open hand had come. He says instead of a goose, their lives will be the prize. That if they can stump him either by one in their head or one from Jake's book, he can go through with his plan and kill them all. But if they if he solves all their riddles, I wrote that wrong. So if Blaine solves all their riddles, no matter what, at the end he can kill them. But if they stump him once, they get to live, buying their lives. After this proposal, Blaine is silent. Roland asks if he understands. A simple yes is all they get. Roland then asks, "Do you agree?" And then I took the rest of the subchapter down. I'm just going to read it because it is intense.
Yeah. And the end of the book.
And the end of the book. Like, this is where it ends. More silence from Blaine the Mono. Eddie sat stiffly with his arm around Susanna, looking up at the ceiling of the barony coach. Susanna's left hand slipped across her belly, thinking of the secret which might be growing there. Jake stroked Oi's fur lightly, avoiding the bloody tingles where the bumbler had been stabbed. They waited while Blaine, the real Blaine, now far behind them, living his quasi-life beneath a city where all the inhabitants lay dead by his hand, considered Roland's proposal. "Yes," Blaine said at last. "I agree. If I solve all the riddles you ask me, I will take you with me to the place where the path ends in the clearing. If one of you tells a riddle I cannot solve, I will spare your lives and take you to Topeka, where you will leave the Mono and continue your quest for the Dark Tower. Have I understood the terms and limits of your proposal correctly, Roland, son of Stephen?" "Yes." "Very well. Roland of Gilead." "Very well. Eddie of New York." "Very well. Susanna of New York." "Very well. Jake of New York." "Very well. Oi of Midworld." Oi looked up briefly at the sound of his name. Good boy.
Oi.
Thank you. "You are Quartet, one made from many. So am I. Whose Quartet is the strongest is something we must now prove." There was a moment of silence, broken only by the steady, hard throb of the slow trans turbines, bearing them on across the wastelands, bearing them on toward Topeka, the place where Midworld ended and Endworld began. "So," cried the voice of Blaine, "cast your nets, wanderers, try me with your questions, and come, let the contest begin." That's the end of the book. That's it for Wastelands. That's where it ends. Chills every time. Like the Roland of Gilead, Eddie of New York, Susanna of New York, Jake of New York. Dude, every single time. But also, what the fuck is that ending, King?
Oh,
God
man.
damn it.
Yeah, man, I was mad, and I didn't even have to wait to get the next book. And as time has passed and I've come to understand what real-time readers have to go through, it makes me even more mad in their defense type thing. Where it's
6
just like,
years, right?
yeah, the longest gap between the books is the next one after this. So it's like, oh, my God.
Oh.
How dare you, King? What do you got here?
Roland just goes and makes his deal without any word of consult to the rest. Shows that he really is truly in charge of this quartet.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, they look to him, and he verbally dresses down Blaine.
Yeah.
And then goes straight into his proposal.
Yeah.
Like, after Blaine realizes, like, why Roland was acting the way he is, he's just like, "Hey, look, this is what we're going to do, dude.
Yeah.
Life or death.
Yeah.
Riddle contest. Go."
Yeah.
And everyone's just like, "All right.
I guess we're doing this."
Okay.
My last note here, also, the riddles being a major thing feels like very Tolkien-esque. Riddles in the Dark being one of the most iconic things for Middle-earth, and now we have a riddle contest brewing here. So
Yeah, it's Bilbo and
Smeagol.
Gollum,
Yeah.
that fight over the ring with the riddles, right?
Yeah.
I've never read The Hobbit.
Oh,
so.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, good stuff. Cody says, like George R. R. Martin, except no TV show to hold you over. Yeah, although King never gave us an 11-year break. So, King is much better in that way than George R. R. Martin. A little bit torturous, but not as bad as him. So now we have the afterword. I just wanted to recap it real quick. King first states a lie that assuming that he lives and that readers are interested, the fourth book should appear in the not too distant future. Very big lie from King there, because it does not come in the near not too distant future. He says finding the door to this world has not always been easy for him. He says if the readers demand it, and he's alive, he will provide another book.
God, who would not demand it after reading that ending?
Exactly. He says he's aware some readers will be displeased by how this ends, and he is not too pleased to do it. But that he is surprised by the book sometimes he is surprised by books that write themselves, because they also sometimes end themselves when they end themselves.
Yeah, whenever they want.
Yeah, because we know King isn't necessarily one that plots things out. So I don't think King did this maliciously. He writes one word at a time and builds it out. Sometimes he says the story comes through him, and I think so. Sometimes it's just going to end when it ends, and I don't know. He says the next book is still murky for him, but he promises that Blaine will get resolved. Imagine if it didn't. Imagine if he came back and he's like, "Oh, let's do a whole book of flashbacks and not resolve Blaine until the fifth book."
Yeah.
Can you imagine? And he also says we'll find out more about Roland's life as a young man. He also says TikTok and Walter will be back, which that's always a happy thing, right?
No.
Good old Walter.
No.
Then he connects some of the Robert Browning poems to Walter, and saying that it is this malicious liar, this dark and powerful magician who holds the true key to End World in the Dark Tower, for those courageous enough to grasp it, and for those who are left. So that's
a malicious liar.
He's still a lovable character. No. And then he signs it off in Bangor, March 5th, 1991.
Yeah.
So we're pretty much at time, but we do have a couple notes in the spoiler section, so let's go ahead and...
Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead. Warning, spoilers ahead.
All right, so we are now in the spoiler section. If you've not finished the whole series, we've got a couple notes here to talk about, as well as Carol just dropped in the chat saying it's a call of the turtle. Either King hears it or he doesn't hear it. So, and that's gets a little bit more to the later part of the series as well. So what do you got for the spoiler section here?
So real fast, Eddie got under Blaine's skin right from the start. He ends up killing him with his jokes. But when they go out on and tell him to turn off the viewers, he is being all coy about it and teasing. Roland tells him to do it or don't, but stop playing games. Blaine says they're being rude, and Eddie points out that he is doing what he's built for, to take people places. Blaine doesn't prove him wrong or even respond with words. He hisses at Eddie. So we can already see the buildup of Eddie and Blaine's dysfunctional, like rivalry and everything
what is
that.
Oil and vinegar or oil and water.
Oil and water. They do not mix at all. Blaine is rubbed wrong by Eddie from the very beginning on the platform.
Yeah.
Here we get another example of it where he just hisses at it. It's so bad that he doesn't get words. He just at Eddie and everything like that. So just right off the bat, that's my boy.
And also Cody mentions in the chat, George R. R. Martin once had a disgruntled fan send him a copy of Misery with no note attached. Dear God. My only note here, Blaine mentioning the levels of the tower in a different reality sort of way is the first instance in that manner of it being called out that way.
Yeah.
I think I don't think it's been mentioned that we have levels of the tower. We talk about it all the time. And it's so normal for our phrasing, but it's like I think this is the first time it appeared in the book, and I don't think it's made clear what he's talking about when he's talking about it's played on one level of the tower. Like we know
what he's talking about.
Yeah, we know as multiple, but first time reader, you're like, oh, so at a high level of a floor of the Dark Tower, somebody plays these instruments. Like, it's very interesting, but I do think this is a very for something that is very crucial and key to how we just have our conversations all the time, just constantly. This is the first appearance of it, so that's kind of cool. Roland takes it literal with the upper level of the tower, but it's a little bit more than that, obviously. I think he is truly talking here, and I don't even know if King fully recognized. I think maybe he did, but ultimately we're into a new realm of conversating here. So that is it, though. That's what we got for spoilers.
I don't think there was a lot there to cover with spoilers, so you're on a cliffhanger.
Yeah, this is all very self-contained. We know that it's going to get resolved here in 6 years, publication wise. But yeah, we'll be back in a month to talk about it. We'll be starting the next book. So really excited for that. We're in the spoiler section now, so I could say my next book is my favorite, of course.
Yep.
And we do know that some of the notes that King gave there, they're like, oh, I think some of Roland's younger days will be covered, as well as we'll resolve Blaine and stuff. So it's like, oh, so he kind of had an idea that 4 would be the one that he kind of does what he does. So
Mark says in the chat, can't wait for Wizard and Glass. The flashbacks is my favorite part.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really excited. So
Dude, it's so much world building.
yeah, it's amazing. It's great stuff. And we all get to meet Rhea the Coos.
Boo!
That's going to be fun, right?
I would push a button right now, but we were out of time.
Yeah, we're out of time. Let's go ahead and hit the outro stuff real quick. But yeah, I'm glad we finished this pretty much right on the money time wise. So yeah, we'll hit the outro stuff real quick. If you want to subscribe to us on any podcasting service of your choice, you could do that. You can stream us on Spotify or Stitcher. You can join us with the live streams here at youtube.com/DarkTowerPalaver. We had a whole huge group with us here that did that. If you want to be part of the group, you can do that over here at youtube.com/DarkTowerPalaver. If you are on the YouTube side, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. The like helps us with the algorithm gods, and then the subscribe and ring the bell keeps you all notified of when we're here, when you guys can join us live if it ever moves. If we're not in our fortnight to fortnight schedule, the notifications are a great thing to help you out on that.
2 fortnights in one sentence?
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? And then if you want to find the show notes, we don't have any show notes for this episode, but if you want to find anything Dark Tower Palaver, you can do that over at darktowerpalaver.com. If you want to support the show, you can do that at Patreon at patreon.com/darktowerpalaver. If you want to go ahead and send Peter horrible things like oi mentions of oi harm or emojis or any of those kind of things, you can do that on our Discord all the time.
Hashtag Tad is terrible. Send him dad and teacher jokes.
Wow, we didn't get one until the outro here. But that's all I got. Peter can let you know how to contact the show or find us on social media. I'm also going to throw in the chat the link to the Geekery Abides link. We'll be starting that in about 15 minutes, where we're going to be dreamcasting Red Dead Redemption 2 as an adaptation. But go ahead and hit the outro stuff real quick.
If you want to email us, darktowerpalaver@gmail.com is our old email. We're still using it for another couple months. Our new email is show@darktowerpalaver.com. Our social media is Twitter is @darktowerpod. That's @darktowerpod. Our Facebook is facebook.com/darktowerpalaver. Instagram is darktowerpalaver, all one word, no spaces. And then check out our merchandise. It's tpublic.com/users/darktowerpalaver.
Indeed. And here on the podcast side, got a little guy roaming the studio here. But on the podcast side, we'll sign off as I always do by saying long days and pleasant nights.
Long days and pleasant nights, folks.
All right, everyone in the chat, thank you guys for joining us. You guys are awesome. Cody got Blaine, liar, pants on fire. I like that. Got some emojis for you.
I got some a couple people commenting about that one, and you laughed out loud at that one. I liked it.
Alan has an emoji earlier I see up at the top there, so I love that.
I did want to call out one thing here in the chat real fast. We were getting kind of crazy there towards the end. We're running out of time. But David said, I don't have a pile of dead complex sentences in my basement. And then Alan says, Tad getting his Walter rocks.
I mean, yeah. Anytime he shows up, it makes me happy. So
Flag is bad.
No, he's great. So thank you guys for joining us. It's always good to have you here, part of the conversation. I had a good group here to close us out for this one. We'll be back in a fortnight for the roundtable, and then a fortnight from then we'll be starting The Wizard and Glass. Book 4.
Yeah.
Can't wait. So see you guys then.
Bye, everyone.